All right, and we're here. Show one of one, hopefully of many. It's the Joe of All Trades podcast. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. You'll be able to find us on YouTube and Spotify at Joeofalltrades.content. Again, Joeofalltrades.content. And then all the stuff that, links, subscriptions, blah, 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 that'll all be in the details of everything. So, also, if you would like to support the channel, please visit Patreon, also Joeofalltrades.content. And if you want to give me money to keep doing this, thank you. And then hopefully at some point in time, we can have, exclusive releases, certain things, maybe opportunities to get swag, stuff like that. But we're in the very, very, very early stages. So hopefully we can get there with your support. Anyways, so I'm here with my buddy of almost 20 years, Curtis J. Boardwell, who is here with me to go over what I think is a pretty important thing. We've been talking about doing this type of podcast for a really long time, and that is kind of an outline for firearms for people who are becoming gun people or starting a gun collection or first getting into firearms, and kind of what are the prerequisites of a thorough collection. But first I want to kind of get into starting it off with, normally, it starts with one. And so if you're going to have one, what is it? And I think, so I guess that would be this. The first topic would be, if you got one gun, what is it? You've got a one gun collection. So I think the most important thing to think about this is that what is it for? You know what I mean? So if
it's only one, it's for everything.
If it's for one, it's for everything. So what's the most universal for purposes of, having it, what's your intended use, and, kind of start from there. So I always say this is that if you're intending on self-defense out in the community, then obviously you're talking concealed carry, and you're talking about, then that means pistol. So if you can only have one gun and you're trying to intend to use it for carry, or you like I said, you want to have it on your person for defense, you're talking, a carry gun. And if you are if you're just intending on having it for home defense, I think, same pistol is also super effective. But if you want a shoulder fire weapon, or something, just the ease of use of a, pump shotgun, then I would say that. So, I mean, it kind of, whatever you feel comfortable with. Obviously, you're talking about self-defense inside your home. You got to move about your home. You don't want anything to be unwieldy, but you want to be able to be effective. So I would say the one gun collection boils down to this, is that if you want a shoulder fired weapon, I'd probably say get yourself a 12 gauge pump shotgun. And if you're intending on carrying it, get a carry gun. And so if you're getting a 12 gauge shotgun, I'd say, especially if you're newer into the shotgun, kind of realm, you can't go wrong with the 12 gauge pump, whether it's Mossberg 590, Remington 870, Mossberg Maverick 88, even, I can't remember, it's the Nova. I think it's either Beretta or Benelli has the Nova. That's a nice pump action shotgun. Yeah, I think if you are thinking about it would just kind of be weird if you only had one gun. It'd be a semi-auto shotgun. It's starting to get, it's just a little too bougie for someone who, if you've only got one, you're probably more of a noob or a novice. So
and we love M4, but semi-auto shotguns, they can actually malfunction if you don't have high brass. Mm-hmm. So you're going to want to be able to be somewhat familiar with firearms. And if it's your only gun, you're probably not going to be super familiar with a semi-auto clearing a malfunction or something like that. So
right. And frankly, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't want to be up shit creek with a semi-auto shotgun that's jammed.
No, pump is nice and easy.
Right. And you can put in whatever you want in terms of, load. If you're a little bit more sympathetic person, maybe you've got birdshot in it. Maybe you've got rock salt in it instead of buckshot. I don't think that that's necessarily a good idea.
Good old Kill Bill load there.
Yeah. If you're using deadly force with someone, you should probably use as much as you can get away with. Buckshot at a close range inside of a home, it's going to be catastrophically damaging. I don't know how else to say it. It's going to be bad.
Yeah, it's going to be. There's a famous firearms instructor. I don't remember his name, but he'll say, what is it? Bullets go in you, rifles make a hole through you, and shotguns at close range removes a chunk of your flesh off of you and throws it on the ground, kind of thing. So yeah, they can be very, very effective.
Yeah. Maybe if you want to pull your mic a little bit closer too.
Not too far.
Yeah, it's fine. So there's that. So now on the other side of that, if you are just having one home gun and you decide that it's a pistol, and I would say if you're intending on carrying it this day and age, there's plenty of carry options that are going to be 9mm double stack or a stack and a half, as you would say. And those are, I would, if I've got one 9mm pistol, I would rather it be larger, but in terms of like a duty type pistol, cause it's going to be easier to shoot. It's going to be more, pleasant to shoot. It's going to, you're going to be able to train on it a little bit better. But at the end of the day, the modern 9mm micro compacts, whatever you want to call it, they're pretty shootable. I've got the P365 XL. That's what I carry.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And it's pretty pleasant to shoot. It holds. I've got a three finger grip on the grip. My pinky's not hanging off. With a flush fit mag, and then also I've got the additional 15 rounds. So I think it's you can put a rail on it. You can put a light on it. It's drilled and tapped for an optic, so you can put a red dot on there. So, I think in this day and age, the carry guns have come such a far way that it's probably worth just having that instead of a duty size pistol in terms of a Glock 19, a Glock 17, a Smith & Wesson 2.0, us CZ, having a full blown CZ 75. Yep. Or some of the larger, HKP 30, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, VP9. I would say that if, again, in the context of something like a new shooter or a smaller framed shooter, or if this is a person who's looking to start a gun collection they never have, 9 can be a touch snappy for folks who are just not used to shooting. So even with, especially take a shield, for instance, not even an easy, but a shield, a 9mm and a single stack shield. It's a very, very light pistol for a CCW, and it might be a touch on the snappy side. That's not even talking about like an LC9, which I think is a terrible idea for a brand new shooter to actually go and try. But yeah, 380 would probably be where I would lean if you're a brand new shooter, you're a smaller frame shooter. I have a 380. I'm a big dude, but like it's just the follow-up shots, the recoil is so low and it's so easy that it's very enjoyable to shoot. So if it's your brand new, if you're a smaller stature type of person, there's a lot of people who are a touch intimidated by the 9. You and I both have 9s. Those are our, not going into it, but we have 9s that we love to death, and that are our kind of full-sized carry guns for sure. Mm-hmm. But for newer shooters, for CCW, I would say that also 380 is a very good option if you're recoil sensitive, if you don't have giant hands, if you're looking for something with a little more comfortable shooting as opposed to a 9mm. Also, just an option. Right.
And let's go off on a little tangent about that. So, and you and I have always talked about this in terms of going 380 doesn't necessarily mean going smaller.
No.
So like the M&P Easy 380, it's not a full size pistol, but with your big hands, you can get 3 fingers on the grip.
It's the same size as the 9 shield. It's the same size, if not bigger, because it's wider. But yeah.
Yeah. So in those terms, having a Ruger LCP having that Ruger,
Yeah.
the EC9S, which you had and hated.
Hates death.
Just because we're talking about a smaller caliber doesn't mean smaller gun. And a lot of first time shooters, women, older folks,
That's a good point.
they will go out and get these
Yes.
tiny guns that are really snappy.
That's a great point.
So like if I would recommend, if you want to shoot 380, I would say something like that Shield EZ. I have not personally shot the new M&P Bodyguard 2.0 that's in 380,
either.
but everything that I'm seeing is saying that this pistol is as shootable as a tiny gun has ever been, and kind of Smith & Wesson has cracked the code on that problem. But and then you got to be careful too. A lot of 380s are going to be blowback operation. So if you're if it's a blowback recoil system, then it's probably going to be just as snappy as a 9mm Browning action. I mean, I had a Beretta Cheetah 84. I thought I had found
We
my
both
gun.
wanted to like for sure.
I wanted to love it so much because it's a very sexy looking pistol, and it was double stack 380, but the recoil on it was really snappy.
Spidey.
And I thought it was making an improvement from a CZ82, which, it's a surplus 80s check. Technically a duty pistol. It went on people's hips, for police, military, but it's a little bit more compact. I mean, it's basically a double stack, Walther PPK type design or PP design. But I mean, the 9 Mac round is again pretty snappy. I miss that gun. I want to eventually get back to it just to have as kind of like a, because it was a great shooter, but it was pretty snappy.
Whoever sold that to you was awesome. Is all I have to say.
I think I can't remember the guy. He was an asshole though.
He's a psycho.
Some kind of ogre. So there's that. Basically, I carry a SIG P365 XL. I would recommend something along those lines if you're going to have one 9mm pistol. A lot of people like the Springfield Hellcat. They want it gets a little more credit than people want to give it to because it's Springfield. And then also like Glock 43X or Glock.
We got that from my mom.
Yeah, or a Glock 43, which I think is a 10-round flush fit mag, Glock mags. But if you do that, if you switch the magazine catch or the magazine release button over to like a metal one, there's a company that makes it. So you can get a Glock 43X, switch out the magazine release to a metal one, and then they sell you the metal magazines, which hold 15. So
It's a lot of gun.
That's a lot of gun. And and I was thinking about this, but to be honest, I look at a lot of kind of, I would say not law enforcement, but armed security that I see every day in terms of just being a lawyer, going in on places that have metal detectors, stuff like that. A lot of your security guys that are just kind of getting, either they're retired and they're just running, they've got 365s on their hip.
Yeah. I've seen that.
So there's that. And I mean, you and Curtis and I are both fans of double action, single action.
Yep.
And the thing about that is it's a pretty limited market for smaller carry DASA. I can't think of one. I really can't. Where it's like compact, and it's just because the
not compact.
Yeah, I mean compact in terms of like Glock 19. So like a CZ PO1. It's about the same size as a Glock 19, but it's still pretty chunky
And heavier because it's full metal and everything else. But
yeah, and then also, there was like the CZ, the 2075 Rammy. I mean, I feel like a lot. It was a pretty wide gun, and it's full metal. And like I've thought about it, like going to something like that. So I have DASA carrying like I would want, but everything I ever read is that we tried it shoots pretty good, but it's just too much it's just too clunky to carry. So until that day comes where we can get maybe some smaller internals, or we can figure something out in terms of DASA, then it's going to have to be a striker fired gun to carry. But we're going to move on. So the next collection is your 3-gun collection, which I'm going to say going to be pistol, rifle, shotgun.
Yep.
And so I think you can pretty much say the same thing that we said for if you've got 1 gun in terms of pistol or shotgun. It still, if you got a pistol and you want to carry it, have a carry size gun. If you're not going to carry it, then have more of a duty style 9mm double stack, a little bit bigger. To be honest, most standard frame sizes now are more what we would call medium or compact back in the day, but things like a Glock 19 or like a Smith M&P compact 2.0, that sort of thing. So and I think we can say the same thing again, sirs, if you've got a shotgun, is that you've only got 3 guns. 12 gauge pump is probably going to do it for you. I would recommend always having a 3-inch chamber, at least, if not a 3.5-inch chamber. And Curtis can get into that in terms of recommendations. But you don't, some of the older shotguns like a Winchester Model 12, where, the FUDs are going to say this is the greatest pump shotgun ever made. The Ithaca 37, which I tried to like. I had one. I wanted to like it so much, but it was just such a difficult process of getting cheap, low brass shells stuck in that thing. Yeah. I really had to shoot quality ammo out of it for it to run. And frankly, I'm a cheap bastard. There's no way I'm ever gonna shoot high. I don't like, to be honest. I think shotgun has a purpose. I think there are shotgun guys.
You're not the biggest shotgun guy.
I'm not the biggest shotgun guy. I think it absolutely has its purpose. I want it. When it comes time to use it, it's fine. And I'll say this. I mean, behind my nightstand gun, my number 2 option is I've got a Remington 870 there. So
is that a 3-inch police?
It is a 3-inch police Magnum. So, and I do want to get a little bit more of a modern upgrade. I would love to get one of those new, like the Mossberg I think it's Vanguard. Basically, it's a company that is taking Mossbergs direct from the factory and doing kind of a high purpose kind of job on it. They're putting here, I'll look it up. That's why we have this computer screen here.
So just to clarify something also that Joe said that we kind of take for granted, you were talking about high brass versus low brass. We should probably explain that for super new people.
Yeah,
too.
Why don't you go ahead while I'm Googling this?
So sure. So high brass and low brass, essentially if you look at a shotgun cartridge, which you can probably interlay in the video later, but is the metal piece in a shotgun shell, when you're looking at it, the larger it is, that's where actually the gunpowder is going to be, which means that's what the power pushing the projectiles out of the barrel are going to have. So the high brass is going to be a little bit more powerful, which means it's going to cycle the action a little bit better if it's a semi-auto, and it's just going to work a little bit better sort of generally in efficacy. Sorry.
You're good.
Generally in efficacy. So pumps are nice because it doesn't really matter what it is. Excuse me. Low brass or high brass, you cycle them manually with the pump. That's why it's a pump. So you don't have that issue. But yeah, high brass for semi-autos, M4, M3, auto loaders. Browning was A5? Is that the
A5 was an auto loader.
A5. Things like that, you're going to want to run high brass. It's more expensive. It's more powerful because there's more materials and more gunpowder, but it'll work better. So it's a longer portion of that metal piece on the shotgun shell as opposed to shorter. If you see like bird shot at Walmart, that'll be very, very low portion of metal.
Okay. So this is what I was talking about. This is what I kind of want to update too. So I've currently got an old school Remington 870 Police Magnum. It's a really slick gun. It's blued. It was a non-lethal gun from I can't remember if it was Kansas City, Missouri or Kansas City, Kansas, but from one of their police departments. I got it online on Gunbroker, and it was, complete. The inside of it was basically untouched. It got taken in and out of a cruiser every day, but it had like a yellow stock and a yellow fore end, and it said like less lethal, and it was basically like a beanbag gun. So I stripped it, cleaned up, restained the stock and all that. I've got a sling on it. I've got a light on it, but it's kind of dated. And I think the growing, back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's which is better, the Mossberg 590 or the Remington 870, and it was kind of a coin flip. But I think Mossberg, the problems with Remington, especially getting a new Remington, versus the quality control that Mossberg continues to have, I think the gold standard for a pump shotgun is probably a Mossberg 590. So, which is still, still under contract with the military. So that is their pump shotgun. Yeah. So, yeah, and this is it, the Vang Comp. So the Vang Comp, basically this company is taking, Mossberg's right from the factory and then doing these really nice jobs. It's got a ghost ring sight. It's got obviously the tactical fore end. It's got significant, this is what they call the Vang Comp, is these portings that are at the end of the barrel. So this is pretty slick. It's got, all of the bells and whistles on it. And granted, I want to spend $1,000 on a pump shotgun when I don't even really care about shotguns all that much? Not really. But I know that I can get this. It's going to be the best possible one that I want, and I'm not going to have any problems with it. And it'll last for a really, really, really long time. So there's that. So I would say if you want to spend a bunch of money on a pump shotgun, this is for self-defense or home defense. This is what I would pick up because they're pretty slick. But other than that, I've never had any issues with my 870. And I'm not going to get rid of it. I bought it for $250. I could probably get my money back in today's market, but it's fine.
Easily.
Yeah. But on the other end of that, there's the Mossberg Maverick 88, which is local store here in Northeast Ohio's Finn Feather Fur. They regularly have them for $200. It is a Mossberg. It's not quite the quality build of the 590. I think 590s are made in America. The Mavericks are made in Mexico, but pretty good build quality. You got an 8-shot tube. So the magazine tube on it holds 8 rounds, which is about unless you got a big old 3-gun, snorkel sticking out the end of your gun. 8 rounds is going to be about as much as you can get in there, and it's effective. So I would say if you've only got $200 to spend on a gun, I think Mossberg Maverick 88 is going to be up there. If you're looking, and we can jump into this, but if you're looking for a 9mm pistol, like a Taurus G2C or G3C, whatever it is, you can get those for like $200 too. Mm-hmm. But I would say, I would have no problem, trusting my life on a Mossberg Maverick 88. Mm-mm. So next thing, so 3-gun collection. We've talked about pistol. We went on a shotgun tangent a little bit more. Now we're into rifle. So, what I would say again, what's its purpose going to be? If you've got a 3-gun collection, you're probably leaning more towards a self-defense kind of ideology. So in that regard, it's just plain and simple. It's going to be an AR-15. There are other, it used to be, is it AR? Is it AK? I think the way technology has gone, the AK is it's coming to be obsolescent, and it's really hard to get an optic on there. It's really hard to get other, you can obviously do it, but it's just not as universal a system as an AR is. The parts compatibility, is it a Romanian Wasser? Is it a Yugo? Is it I mean, and I'll say this, a lot of the new AK products coming out, like I wouldn't trust my life on a Century Arms, like Red Army Standard 47, something that's got
C39 or whatever.
Yeah. Something that's got cast trunnions, or like some of those like old, like those IOs. Those are, I haven't even seen any of in a long time because they broke.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I would say go with an AR, 5.56, 223. And you can be as basic or as bougie as you want to be. You can really run the gamut of terms of barrel twist rate, barrel length, certain features. Do you want a red dot on it? Do you want a magnified, red dot? Do you want a magnifier? Obviously you're going to have a light on it. Do you want to go 14 and a half inches and pin it? Do you want a pistol with a brace? Do you want, what do you can run the gamut in terms of options.
Short mag, long mag, drum mag, thumb hole stock, folding stock. They pick one. There's 1,000 things. Mm-hmm. Everything's customizable.
Right. I mean, and I love it, the AK. It's very fun. I would absolutely, again, trust my life on it. But in terms of just the manual of arms, doing mag swaps, it's just not as easy as an AR.
No, and I think when you say 3-gun, I think the number of people in, we'll just say the U.S., that have only 3 guns and they have an AK are probably very, very, very few. It's the guys who are gun collectors or serious gun guys or girls. They'll get an AK. But if you only have 1 or 2 or 3 guns, the chance that you have an AK among them, probably pretty low. It's pretty esoteric.
Yeah. And, I'm going to go with like back in our day, but like when we were first getting into firearms, you were an AR guy or you were an AK guy.
Very split.
And then basically all it meant is you had one of the one thing that you're not and a bunch of the thing that you are.
Yeah.
So if you're
a lot of arguments back then.
Yeah. So you would have your AK guy would have several AKs and then one AR. If you're an AR guy, you have multiple ARs and one AK. And that was back when, when we were first starting, in an AR was $1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to get a Colt, like 6914 or so, whatever that is.
516 or
yeah. Basically or like a Bushmaster, patrolman carbine, like an XM15 patrolman, something like that. It's $1,000.
You remember those quad rails were like hundreds of dollars back then. You're like, you have a quad rail. You don't have the military, just normal hand grip or whatever. It was crazy.
Right. And then, Wasser 10 was $350.
Literally $349.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or, the Segas, you're talking Russian Segas, multi-caliber. Yeah. You could get them in 7.62 by 39, 5.45, 308, 5.56. Same thing with like the Narinkos. The pre-band Narinkos were a little bit more expensive back then, but you're talking Russian parts kit Segas for $350.
Very cheap.
So, and it, so there was a lot of people that those guns were geared towards, because you get a heck of a lot more gun for $350 than $1,000. Yep. And now it's completely reversed. I mean, you can, I don't know what the daily deals are in, Palmetto State, but I mean, you can get, I'm pretty sure you could probably get an AR-15 with, front sight post and a backup, a folding sight for $450, $500.
Yeah, without those sights, the cheapest I saw that was a dealer price, not a normal price, but a dealer price was like $299. Expecting an optic to be on top without the front sights, with the quad rail, and then and again, that's not including FFL, it's not including shipping and tax, and there's other stuff involved. I think it was like $340 or $350 for a civilian. But again, you'd want to add, everyone's going to add their own stuff to it. So yeah, you're probably at $450 to $500 by the time you're out of it. But yeah, the reversal, it went from here to there.
Right. I mean, and now, I mean, you can get a shitty AK for like $800-$900.
Yeah.
But you really gotta start getting into the $1,000, $1,200, $1,500. I mean, like, and I can't even forget the name. The really high end AK manufacturer.
Oh shoot. It's not Arsenal. It's
I think it's
is it Arsenal?
I think it's Arsenal. Where like we would I mean, these are things that we would regularly talk about. It's just not and it's not there anymore because it's kind of, we're cheap. We're kind of, we're not
Super rich people.
we're not, Arsenal. Yeah, okay. That's it. If things are just too expensive, we just kind of don't think about it. I don't think about Ed Brown 1911s. I don't think about like Cabot 1911s. I don't think about
collector edition Colt Pythons.
Right. I really don't think about like Staccato 2011s. I mean, like, it's just,
the average person cannot afford that.
Right. And this channel, I'll say it goes without saying from here on out, it's always going to be about best bang for your buck because
value snobs.
Value snobs. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I put my pinky out, but it doesn't mean I'm not looking for a deal. Yeah. So there's that. So, and I would say in terms of AK, in terms of like mounting an optic, mounting a light, having good magazines, it's a little bit more troublesome. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's the AK mags from Magpul and stuff like that, but I got a whole box of like Korean steel AK mags and, they get the job done at the range. That's fine. So I'd say for the most part, go with an AR. You're going to be able to put everything you want on it. Nothing you don't. You're going to have it as heavy or as light or as anything in between in terms of options. You can really choose like literally every little thing you can customize to yourself. So, and that's what I've done with at least my duty AR, not my long range one, but there's other 5.56 platforms that people might look at. People think about like like a Ruger Mini 14 or like that CZ Bren or bullpups like Steyr AUG or the
Keltec ADP.
Mm-hmm. The IWI, was it the XM?
Tavor.
Yeah, the Tavor.
And the X95.
Yeah, and the X95. They're fine, I guess. I feel like you're just going to go out of your way spending a lot of money trying to make it as good as a basic AR.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I had the Tavor, as you know, and you shot it and I shot it, and it was great, but, sooner or later, the more you go through something like that, you'll run through the magazine changes, and it's like that was one of the tap by the magazine things, and you'll just realize that Stoner had that's the guy who invented the AR-15, had a really good ergonomic design capability for what that was going to be. It's right there at the trigger. There's guns that have that like the Setme, for instance, that I also have. And when you can't even reach it from your grip at all. And you can't reach it from the grip also the Tavor. You have to reach back with the hand that's trying to change the mag. So when you learn and you have experience on like the AR-15 relative to other things, you go, oh yeah, it's just kind of a better design, honestly. It just is.
Mm-hmm. And I always feel like just getting basic standard accuracy out of an AR is so much easier than first an AK. You had a pound on the front sight post, or you had or
it depends on the ammo.
Yeah,
with an AK, it's much more ammo dependent.
Right. I mean, and the thing is, you're talking AK now, whether it's 5.45 or 7.62 by 39, you're getting most of the time you're shooting steel case garbage. Mm-hmm. And
Wolf.
Yeah.
Tula.
I mean, it's not garbage. It does its job.
It works.
Yeah, it works. Fine. It's fine. But you're not going to be able, and honestly, the drop rate, and me, I love a flat shooting round, which is, I have a 5.45 AK right now. I don't have a 7.62 by 39 right now. I need to get back into it, but I mean, like, I would much rather take a flat shooting bullet over a heavier
tank round, like an 8 mil.
Yeah,
8 mil.
where
I love
you
8
really
mil.
got to drop that thing in.
Yep.
But I mean, just getting a AR to be a 3 MOA gun at 100 yards is just so much easier than figuring out other options. I mean, and bullpups are not, historically, the argument for bullpups is I've got a 16-inch barrel in a much smaller package.
You're tighter.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, just bullpups are just not as accurate as ARs are. They're just not.
No, typically not. No, and like about the accuracy, your Bushmaster is the most boring rifle in the world to shoot because it's so stupidly accurate.
Yeah.
Like it's just a point and click, and then after 2 mags, you're like, okay, well, this isn't like shooting really. It's just like playing on a computer and putting my mouse on a piece and then clicking the button. There's a dot there.
Yeah, I mean, we've taken it to the range. This is a 20-inch H-bar Bushmaster pre-ban made in Windham, Maine. And it's a tack driver. And I mean, we've taken people to the range and they've shot it and like, this is boring because I just keep hitting the target at 100 yards. And these are novices who
Barely
ever shoot. So there's that. Another thing in terms of, or category in terms of the rifle of a 3-gun collection is, and what's kind of a growing sector of shoulder fired weapons, or, maybe I shouldn't say shoulder fired weapons, but pistol caliber carbines. So, or even just, pistol caliber carbines or certain, pistols with braces on it. I think the only kind of the argument that you may have is that if I want to just have one caliber, so like if I just want to have 9 mil, then you have this, you have a Smith and Wesson, that new folding carbine or newer. Those are pretty slick. Like the Ruger, it used to be the Camp carbine. I think it's just called like the Ruger 9 carbine now. You can get it in a takedown model.
I thought it still maybe had Camp or something in the name, but correct me if I'm wrong. But
You're right.
I know it's based off of that. I mean, the whole shape and everything looks the same. But yeah, those are great too.
PC carbine.
PC carbine. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and then
Yeah, those are good, and there's a lot of varieties for the magazines, I believe, for those as well.
Yeah, and here, trying to bring it up. Along with this venture, I'm getting used to a Mac. So here, the Ruger PC carbine. I think it takes Ruger mags, and there's like a certain well, so it'll also take Glock mags. But like, so if you just say, I just want to have 9 mil and that's the only caliber I want to deal with, then this might be an option for you. Or you might even say, I only want to have one type of magazine. So I've got a Glock 19, or I've got a Ruger,
American or something.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I don't even know.
That was a guess, by the way. I'm hoping that
I don't even know what the current.
I know Ruger semi-auto is a current manufacturer, not our forte right now.
Right, and I mean we love the old, the Ruger P series,
P95s,
P95, P89. Yeah. So there's that. All right, I think we're on to the next category.
Do you want to talk about if someone wanted to choose a 1022, for instance, for their 3-gun rifle?
Yeah, we can do that, and we can kind of segue into let's use that to segue into the kind of the next section. So we're talking about the full collection, where you want basically, this is going to be an outline or a list of the guns that we think that if you have a collection, that these are the things to kind of check off the boxes of the individual categories within the firearms world. So with that, the first thing I would say is a 22 rifle. So, and we can talk about that towards a 3-gun. We can talk about now both in terms of a 3-gun collection, but in terms of you're first getting into shooting, you're first getting into marksmanship, that sort of thing. I think probably the best thing that you can do, and terms of, if you're an adult, you're getting a younger person into it, or you're getting someone who's really just completely unknowledgeable about firearms, is first thing to shoot is a 22 rifle, something you can put on your shoulder, something you can teach, standard, marksmanship practices, that sort of thing. So there's that. But yeah, I would say in terms of a 22 rifle, we can talk, until the cows go home. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a 10-22. It is so ubiquitous in terms of,
reliable,
and, and there's so many different models, to where if you want a tactical version, if you want a target version, if you just want a basic carbine, they have the takedown models, they have the camper models, they have, there's probably 100 different types of Ruger 1022s.
There's pistols of a 1022.
Yeah, the Charger. Yeah, so I'm trying to make this go away, but I can't. But either way, so yeah, you're talking about, you've got 10 round magazines, you've got 25 round magazines. I think they make 15s too. Mm-hmm. But in terms of, we can talk about other options like a Marlin Model 60, or, like the I think the Savage semi-auto, I've heard nothing but good things.
You could find them for $120, used, like really cheap. They're mag fed, they're semi-auto, they're reliable. Would either of us perhaps choose that over the Ruger? Probably not. But if you're on a super tight budget, is that going to function reliably every single time? Yeah, it will.
Mm-hmm. And I've never had any problems with my 1022. I had a Marlin Model 60 before that I got somewhere for $100, just off some guy at a gun show. And when it shot, it was great. But the thing with that is it was very choosy on ammo. And if you're first getting into firearms, you need to understand that 22, it's a rimfire cartridge, which means it's basically the side of the rim gets basically clamped, and that's what sets off, versus a center fire where there's a firing pin that hits the middle, the back of the round, and then that ignites the primer. So with a rimfire cartridge, you're going to, it's going to be less reliable in terms of certain guns. So 22s can be what we might say choosy on certain ammunitions. So you got to run what's normally a hotter round in order for it to run. My Marlin Model 60 only ran on CCI mini mags or CCI velocitors. So it was annoying because it was really hard to actually clear it out, and like what they call the feed throat function of a Marlin Model 60 was just overly complicated. So I mean, I guess if you're really a 22 nerd, and you'll see these guys when you go out to the range, they're sitting on a bench and they put up a deck of cards and they're shooting out the jack's eye at 80 yards. They've got a bolt action 22, that sort of thing. So if you're really working on 22 marksmanship, I think, which I mean, you've kind of currently got a taste for.
Mossberg 44.
Yeah. And so there's that. But I think for the most part, the universality of, Ruger 1022, you can't go wrong.
Too hard to beat.
And then, but also if you go to a gun show, or, there's going to be some FUDs with some old 22s, and you're like, I have no idea what this is.
Winchester Model X4 23 7000 that they say is the best gun in the world.
I mean, and they've got a story that goes behind it. Don't buy the story, buy the gun. But, kind of, you're not going to have any idea what that one Savage that you have that's hanging up on your wall, the bolt action. I mean, that thing was manufactured in what, like 1917 or something?
Yeah, to be a national sport Like targeting rifle, yeah.
Right, and it's incredibly fun to shoot. I'm sorry, Ryan. Ryan's my brother. No offense. I bought it off Curtis to give to him to kind of, maybe teach his boys how to kind of learn to shoot, and that's a perfect gun to learn to shoot on. But he never shot it. So I was like, certain guns belong with certain people because they're just going to be used. And it's nothing against my brother. It's just his type of shooting is not what our type of shooting is. If I were to define ourselves, and I'll go on a little tangent here, but if I were to define ourselves, I think it would probably be along the kind of lines of gun hipsters. Obviously, we're looking for values. We're looking for weird stuff. And I'm not, just going to the range and having a good time with something that's kind of weird or off the beaten path. That's kind of our forte. Whereas my brother's like just a super tactical shooter. He has to be for his job.
Yeah,
so
he's a technician. We're more, we can be sentimental and more kind of nuanced and appreciative. You're Savage, for instance. That's in no way, I would hope, anything you're going to rely on in a tactical or self-defense situation, life or death. It's just that's a super cool historical, firearm, pistol. The broom handle, for instance. We both know I'm sort of obsessed with that. Is that anything remotely close to a life and death reliable operation that I would count on? No, of course not. It's also super cool. It's super, super cool.
Right. And we'll get back to that. I do want to get to that.
Okay.
Next category, obviously, if you're going to go 22 rifle, I think you got to have a 22 pistol. So it can be, and this is, I want to talk about, our categories can obviously overlap each other. So if you've got something like a Colt Woodsman or an old Browning Buckmark to where you've got your 22 pistol, but you've also, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about historical firearms. If you've got those, you can check two boxes with one gun. But I think 22 pistol goes the same argument. Okay, teaching someone basic new marksmanship, you start with a rifle, and then if you want to move to a handgun, then 22 pistol I think is the way to go. I think you would probably make a recommendation for like a Walther 22 or the P22.
I think that I've had a lot of those, as you know, Ruger SR22, Walther P22. For other folks, based off reliability, something I don't have quite yet. Like you mentioned, the Buckmark, for instance. I bet there's a lot of folks out there whose dad or grandpa had a Ruger Mark II or a Mark III. The Luger looking one. Those would be fine. I would say at this point, buying a brand new one, maybe a Ruger SR22 or probably something more like a Mark IV is going to be on the reliability side a little bit better. You also have that 1022 and AR-15 customizability with a Ruger Mark IV. You can turn that thing into literally anything you want to in the entire universe. They make 10 billion different accessories for it and different add-ons. But yeah, the P22, which is a Walther, that's a teensy, but you have to find, there's good ones and there are bad ones. You find a good one, it'll work for you all day long. You find a bad one, you're going to have some jammy jams, and that's going to lock up every once in a while. But SR22 is a little bit better. That's just like the Walther P22, which is made by Ruger. But from what I hear, and I haven't had one, but the Mark V by Ruger also, that's used by target shooters, competition shooters all over the planet. That is a really nice single stack, which is helpful with 22, for instance, because of the rim, like you mentioned. That's probably a pretty good bet. Smith & Wesson makes a Target 22. Beretta makes that. What's their Target one? You always remember it. I can't remember it.
The Beretta 22.
The Target one.
Yeah, I cannot remember.
The Smith & Wesson one's, I think, the SW22. The Beretta is like, I want to say 44A1, but that's not it. It's in any event, it's a larger one with kind of a weird top slide and everything, and it's a Target one. There's a lot of those. They're a little bit more on the pricey side, but even like a Smith & Wesson M&P 22 full size, I've heard really good things about those. We're probably better suited to inform them of maybe ones that are super duds. So, some Walther P22s are not super great. What's the worst? The Stinger, right? It's a SIG, but it's actually made by GSG or something like that. You know more about that.
Anything about the GSG, I would say if you know guns, you've been around guns, you can, if you want to make that gamble, go ahead and do it. But
your GSG,
yeah. I mean, I've had them. I had a GSG, it was like an MP5 clone, but it was literally falling apart. It probably could have been safe enough to shoot 22, but I didn't really want to try it out. But I got rid of it pretty fast. I would say the Ruger SR22, do with that, that. And I've heard same thing as you, in terms of the Walther. You're either going to get a really good one or you're going to get a dud.
And I have one, by the way. Like, I like it a lot, but that one works.
Yours is fine. And that's the one with the gray frame, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. You've had other ones that were not great.
Yes. I had to get rid of those.
I haven't shot one yet, but they look super awesome. Are those the FN 22 tactical?
522?
I think it is the 522 tactical.
I might be making that up.
And it is double single action. It's kind of got a lot of the same features that the other FN DASA guns have right now, like the FNX 45, FNX 9. It has a lot of the same features in terms of big magazine, decocker. I'm going to be getting one here soon. It's the FO2 tactical.
FO2.
Yeah, I'm having some difficulties with my laptop here, so I'm using my cell phone. So there's that. I would look into one of those. From what I see, they're not choosy on ammo. They'll run crap. I watched Coleon Noir did a video on it. Shout out to Coleon Noir. And it looked pretty sweet. And he's like, this is the coolest. He can be a little hyperbolic, but he's like, this is coolest 22 that I've ever shot. I have a Beretta Bobcat. I would say, unless you're willing to shoot the bougie ammo out of it, don't get one. I've got one that was manufactured in the 80s. Beretta's kind of had a resurgence recently of starting to manufacture the tip-up barrels again. Mm-hmm. So those are pretty sweet. But, I don't know, and I don't know about the new ones, but the old ones are choosy on ammo. I got to shoot CCI mini mags. I got to shoot velocitors through them.
Yeah, you don't want to shoot your brick of Thunderbolt Remington, your green brick of that out of it.
I would say if you're buying 22 by the bucket, you have a Ruger SR22. But you're right. I think the newer Mark models are they're easier to break down. Mm-hmm. They're easier to clean. So a lot of people aren't disenfranchised by them. They're great. They've always been great shooters. Mm-hmm. It's just taking them apart is awful.
The 2 and 3s were notorious among experts, and they're like, I want nothing to do with this breakdown kind of thing.
Right. So there's that. And then, Browning Buckmark. And then, you had mentioned, I think the Beretta 22 wasn't an Inox is like a trim package, but
no, it's not that. Yeah, I can't remember the name. I know the Smith & Wesson made version that was a little bit like it. It was big, very pretty plasticky, but has a big giant rail on the top, and I believe it was the SW22. Mm-hmm. The Beretta Target one has a very specific name that I'm not exactly remembering right now, but
it is the U22 Neos.
Okay.
I think it was very similar to that. Was it Smith & Wesson Victory?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Victory 22. And I think you had one of those where it's like, this is just, it looks like an Olympic gun or something.
It felt like a BB gun.
Yeah. Where they're super accurate and they're fun to shoot.
Yeah.
But they don't, The thing with those guns is that they are fun to shoot. They're probably going to be the most accurate. They might be the most reliable 22s, but they themselves have a manual of arms that is different than most standard pistols of self-defense caliber. So
Sure.
when you're shooting on those, it's more for plinking in terms of we're just training someone, but we're eventually going to bring them up to a more powerful caliber. Okay. Next on the list, shotgun. I think we've kind of gone at length about this. If you're going to have one, you're probably going to start with 870 Mossberg, Remington 870 Mossberg 500. If you're going into the semi-auto realm, I mean, and I really don't know a whole too much about, a lot about that semi-auto shotguns, but usually the more money you spend, the better off you're going to be. But
be careful going cheap on this.
Yeah, I think that's something we should talk about is if you have one shotgun and you are going to defend your life or your family's life, do not get a Turkish-made semi-auto bullpup shotgun. I think we were just looking at one at the gun show today.
What was it called?
It was a Tokarev.
Tokarev, that's right.
Yeah, and I've seen James Reeves, shout out to James Reeves, TFB TV. I've seen him do a video on it. It was fine, but it had some hiccups. But that's not something, they're cool. If you have $350, $400 to blow and just have something fun to take to the range, sure, why not? But I would kind of stay away from that. I would stay away from Turkish pump shotguns. I mean, I know that even Winchester's slapping their name on Turkish shotguns.
A lot of people are outsourcing.
One of those like the XSPs or something.
Yeah.
But I would say stay away from that. It's just you want.
Well, they're still going to be expensive too.
Yeah,
it's not like you're saving a bunch of money. I mean,
no, I mean,
still probably a lot.
You're going to be able to get a Mossberg. Like I said, the Maverick 88, it's $200, or you spend $300 on something, something from Turkey, and it's not as good, just because it looks cooler.
No, the number of, like when you're talking about Mossberg versus Remington, I mean, the number of pump action malfunctions with one of those, I mean, out of thousands and thousands of rounds, I mean, more than one or two, can you even think of? I mean, your Ithaca, I think, was the most probably problematic of anything ever. I mean, like the one that I have, and then your 870, I mean, I can't even think of any type of problem that we had with it. I mean, there's just nothing to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's all manual by the pump.
Right. And yeah, I would say, I want it. So the Ithaca 37, it was obviously finished in 1937. It began in production by John Moses Browning. He passed away. It was actually finished by John Pedersen. So that's kind of why I wanted the gun to work too, is that there's this story out there where you're talking about a gun that started off life with John Moses Browning, and then was finished by probably the next most prolific gun designer of all time in John Pedersen. So I was bummed that it didn't really work. It was a police model, had an 8-shot tube. It was Parkerized, but it just could not shoot, as we were talking about the low brass. So I had to get rid of it. It was something I couldn't, bet my life on. So there's that. But let's talk about what your go-to shotgun is. And I think it's a little bit off the beaten path. And I think that's kind of how we are kind of gun hipsters, as I will say. But what's your go-to shotgun?
Mine is, I want to say it's the 810. It could be the 835, but for some reason that didn't sound right. So we'll say 835 because I believe it's actually the exact same thing with probably some minor difference of finish or something. But There's the 835 we saw today, for instance. So that is a Mossberg. It's a pump action shotgun. You can change some things on it, but I believe it usually comes with a longer turkey barrel, some 26, 28 inch something, which is something else we can mention. If you buy a Mossberg Maverick 88, that's going to come with a super long. It's probably going to come with that long barrel. For most people, if that is your only pump action shotgun, you do not need or probably want that longer type of barrel on it. You can swap those out for some shorter ones. You can extend the magazine tube, for instance, like I did. But you just don't feel constrained by whatever you purchase. A lot of these things are able to be changed. So my 835, I have, I'll say what I have, then I'll say why I have it. I have an 835. It has an extended magazine tube. It has an 18-inch barrel. And then all the internals, as you've seen, have all been polished to literally basically perfect sheen and functionality. It cycles more smooth than any shotgun I've ever used in my entire life. So I did all that, but the magazine tube extension allows for more rounds. That's pretty obvious. That is a pretty good benefit no matter what. It doesn't hurt anything other than a tiny bit of additional weight. The shorter barrel makes it easier to manage in a tight situation. I also like the wider spread at shorter distances. I don't need any type of long range. It's not a turkey gun. I'm just not shooting turkey that are 40 yards away or whatever else. So that all makes sense to me. The other thing too is it's an 835. So I think most of what Joe is probably alluding to is the 35. Joe is mentioning that a 3-inch Magnum in his Police 870 is very beneficial because you have access to potentially much more powerful and much more effective personal defense ammunition in something like a Magnum, double-aught buckshot load. The 835 is actually able to chamber 3.5-inch Magnum turkey loads. Now, I want nothing to do, frankly, with 3.5-inch Magnum turkey loads, but the way that mine is set up is such that any 12-gauge round on the planet will function and cycle and fire perfectly through my shotgun. As long as it is 12-gauge, it can be an Aguila, mini shell. It can be a 3.5-inch Magnum turkey load. It can be a Walmart 2.5-inch low brass birdshot. Every single thing you will encounter in life that is 12-gauge, non-lethal beanbag, rock salt, like you said, full bore, high brass, 3.5-inch turkey load. Every single thing will cycle, function, and fire perfectly through mine. If you have something that's different or has a smaller chamber, like a 3.0 or a 2.5, like a 88, it's probably only just 2.5 or 275 or whatever.
2 3/4, yeah.
275. Those are going to be constrained by that type of ammunition based off of whatever size the chamber is. That's not bad. Your 3-inch Magnum, for instance, that's going to cover 99% of all ammunition you're ever going to come in contact with. My thing was, if you're looking at something for versatility and for this will get any job done whenever possible, because both of us are not crazy shotgun guys. I like them probably more than you do, but
probably
because of your shirt. But the that one,
yeah, clever girl.
More on that later. But shotguns can be very cool, but they're just not typically what hey, let's go to the range. No one's like, cool, I'll bring my shotgun. It's just not usually what people are actually talking about. But,
and we're not typically trap shooters either.
No, which is fun. It's great in its own place.
Yeah,
love that, but
we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But also just for the listener, speaking of clever girl and me wearing a Jurassic Park shirt and skeet shooting, Curtis did take a SPAS 12 to a skeet shoot one time because that's pretty much all he had.
Because it's insane.
Yeah. But I want to jump back. So yeah, now, not that we're super huge conspiracy theorists, preppers, that sort of thing. It's something to think about. But
you run out of ammo at the range and your buddy has some,
right,
no matter what he brings.
Or, if you are moving throughout, somewhere, in a SH, shit at the fan situation, and you've got, your Mossberg 835, and if you come across a box of 3.5 shells, you can use them, that sort of thing. But I think, and this is, there's a new trend, and I think the reason why I want to kind of up my shotgun game is because I do think that there's a new need to be more proficient with shotguns, and I think we can see from warfare in Ukraine right now, and this is kind of what I want to get into, is that drones and like, if basically what the type of combat that's going on in Ukraine right now is very, very archaic. I mean, they're essentially, other than the drones, it's pretty much trench warfare. Like, it's World War I. Yeah. It is guys in one trench and guys in the other trench, and whoever shoots each other first or whoever throws a grenade. But right now we're working on, not working on, but like what we're seeing is these drones, to where there are small drones with an IED on it, or it's either crash the drone into the people or drop the IED off the drone. But basically, what we're seeing is the most effective way of fighting against these drones are dudes just with shotguns. Yeah. And from what I've seen, and just for the people at home, whatever, like, it's from what I've read or what I've seen, and we can't really get into it too much. I'm not saying that we're doing anything, but you're not allowed to fly a drone
in America.
Yeah, in America, you're not allowed to fly a drone. You're not allowed to shoot down a drone. So
even if it's like right in front of your face at your pool on your property,
right?
To be fair, like, you just can't do it.
You just can't do it. So watch your mic there, buddy. So that being said, there's not a lot of data out there about what's going to be effective against a drone, but from what I've read is that basically a 3.5-inch turkey load is going to be the most effective, because it can travel the longest and still keep the pattern that it has, and be effective at taking down, whether it be these tiny Amazon drones or something a little bit bigger. So there's that. But that's, Curtis's decision to, for his go-to shotgun. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this stuff, because, you're not going to get you may not always get the best information at the gun counter when you're like, I want this for this, that sort of thing. Most of the time,
they're going to sell what they're told to push.
Yeah. So, okay. Next one, and we kind of talked about it already again, is AR-15. Like I said, it's as customizable as anything could ever be. I would say your first one should probably be for more of either a defensive build or even a slightly offensive build, but basically a modern combat, carbine, to where, if you've got a basically, and I mean, we're talking about this being in, we're in Northeast Ohio, where we're not going to have too much combat beyond 100 yards. I mean, it's just the topography of Northeast Ohio is
too many hills.
Yeah, it's too many hills. So having an open field, not all that realistic. So, but I mean, I've got two AR-15s. One is more of a standard, very lightweight, just basic carbine. It's got a red dot. It's got a light. It's got a one of the old GWOX lowers. It was basically when Forgotten Weapons and In Range, they did their What Would Stoner Do build. I basically copycatted a lot. I didn't spend as much money as they did, so I made some concessions, but for the most part, it's what I would call my What Would Stoner Do carbine. And it's
16-inch?
16-inch, bird cage, mid-length gas system, 1-in-8 twist, chambered in 223 Wild, which was kind of sexy at the time. It's got a hollow sun red dot. I'll probably want to get a magnifier on it. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. I've got an older Olight M1X Striker flashlight on it. Just a pretty decent Amazon sling on it. but it's under 6 pounds. It's got the fail zero bolt in it. Thank you, Curtis.
The best one.
So yeah, and then I also have a long range AR, which I kind of call my, my DMR, which was that, we talked about it, the Bushmaster H-bar pre-ban, but it's got a Vortex Spitfire Crossfire. Sorry, Vortex Crossfire.
Because it's magnified.
Yeah, AO 4-12 scope. It's and it's a tack driver. So, but like I said, if you can spend as little as much money as you want, I really don't think if you think that you're not going to get a good gun unless you spend $1,800 on a Daniel Defense, I think you're mistaken. Is even, I think you could probably even go cheaper than like Smith & Wesson M&P Sport. I think a lot of people would probably go to that one for, like, I don't know anything, but I'm going to get a decent, the build quality is going to be consistent. I'm not going to get a lemon.
It's not a bad choice for that.
Yeah. So there's that. So yeah, and like I said, you can go in Palmetto State, do what we call slap it together. You buy the upper, you buy all the other parts, you get it shipped to your house. And then the lower, which is the gun part, goes to an FFL. You come home, you slap it together, and you're going to get a 5.56 with a 1-in-7 twist and a front sight post, and you need to put up a backup sight on it if it doesn't come with it, or put a red dot on it, or whatever optic you choose, and you're good to go. And obviously stuff like the magazines are going to be regular, usually cheap. I think PMags are like $15, depending on the gens or the models.
And the political instability at the time.
Yeah. So there's that. And then again, next in the gun guy collection is an AK. Like you said, if you don't have one already, do your homework. I would avoid buying just some mass-produced something from Century and without doing your homework. I think what I've read about the current AKs that are being manufactured by Palmetto State, I've watched videos made by Hop, so shout out to Hop, where he was pretty impressed with their build quality. I mean, without also first noting their obsolescence, but their build quality, they've got forged trunnions. They're really set up pretty well. I think it's more of a Wasser, I want to say it's based off the Wasser. So, but I would say if you're not getting the PSA ones, I would go with Yugo. They're going to be heavier. They're going to be a little bit bulkier. The parts compatibility with Yugo AKs, and by Yugo I mean they're formerly the country of origin was formerly Yugoslavia, but the manufacturer of them is going to be Zastava. So your Zastava M70 PAPs. I had the pistol at one time, the M92 PAP. Dude, those are as tough as. And speaking of AKs being tough, these are amongst the toughest AKs that you can find.
They're great. They're very high quality, very heavy, but in a good way, is in quality materials. But I think the only thing about those is if you're trying to do it on the cheap, don't shoot the surplus stuff, because I don't think those are chrome lined barrels.
I do not think they're chrome lined barrels, but I don't.
No one's really shooting surplus anymore, anyways.
Right. I think at least where we are, Northeast Ohio, the corrosive 7.62 by 39 has dried up.
Dried up pretty good.
I think to be honest, I think the only corrosive stuff out there that you can probably find a lot of is 7N6, and that's not as available as it used to be. No. And then like stuff like 8mm Mauser, like really old stuff, and like in your kind of you're rolling the dice with that stuff.
Mosin was Mosin Burton Primer?
Yeah. Mosin is what's up, Chris? Got Chris House in the background here. The Mosin, yeah, I don't remember like the model, like a bullet, you know what I mean? Where I said like 7N6, that's 545 by 39.
I don't remember it.
Right.
Just spam can Mosin.
Yeah, but spam can Mosin was burnt and primed. It was corrosive. And, you know, it's pretty hard to find 762 by 54R now, too.
Yeah, those cans are almost gone.
Yeah. And
relatively speaking to what they
when we first got into shooting and, you know, about, you know, when I turned 18, 16 years ago. So, or 18, I don't want to talk about it. But like, yeah, that stuff was a nickel around, 10 cents around.
It was dirt cheap. It was barely over 22 ammo.
I mean, I bought a unissued Mosin Nagant M44 out of the crate for $90. And that was back in the day, you could get a Mosin 9130 for like $45. And now what's
10 times the price.
They're 10 times the price. Yeah. So there's that. But yeah, in terms of AK, just do your homework. Like I said, I would, you know, the newer Palmettos I think are good. The Zastavas, older Wassers, what we both have AK-74, so it's the 545 by 39 chambering. We have those from Waffenwerks, but I don't think that company stayed in business for very long. But I will say the build quality of these rifles was stupendous.
They used Bulgarian parts kits, so
yeah, and I mean it's great to this day. I mean it's kind of amazing how accurate an AK can be. It kind of blows you out of the water on open sights. All right. Next thing we have a long range gun. So, you know, it kind of boils down to like what's the purpose? Are you doing target shooting? Are you doing deer hunting? Are you doing, and you know, I'll say we have another category for Ohio hunting. But in terms of, you know, what do you want to do with a long range gun? I mean, I know some guys who do long range target shooting. It's kind of hard to do it in Ohio, but, you know, so are you looking at a 6.5 Creedmoor? Are you looking at a 300 Win Mag? You know, if that's your cup of tea, I mean, and that's kind of a nerd, subculture shooting in and of itself, is like these guys, they don't really care about tactical shooting. They don't care about pistol shooting, but they love sitting on a bench and dropping a 300 Win Mag inside of a 6 inches at 500 yards.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, I mean, I'm not all that knowledgeable. If I personally was getting a long range gun, I would probably get a 308 and a semi-auto. I think because it can have a wider range of function. I think there's always the comment or that, you know, semi-auto guns aren't as accurate as bolt guns, and that's true. But I think for my shooting skills, I don't think it's all that much to worry about.
No, and like the 6716 is a semi-auto AR-15 platform, piston-driven 308 semi-auto that takes PMags, and that is proven, I believe, to be a 1 MOA gun. So, you know, yes, you're entirely correct that a bolt is typically going to be a little bit better, you know, than a semi-auto, but are there semi-auto 308s out there that will probably be better than the average shooter's capability? Also probably true.
Mm-hmm. And like some of the other stuff, like the Remington 700, I think kind of the build quality has fallen off to the point where I think they got sued or there was a recall and there's like some problems with the trigger, you know, that sort of thing. Probably stay away from that stuff. Obviously the older stuff, it's gonna be a little bit better. You know, what's out like the Winchester, what's like Model 77,
Savage 10.
Savage Model 10, I think has always been kind of the SWAT guy. You know, in the movies when there was someone from on a top of a roof from a long ways away, and they're the SWAT sniper. It's a Savage Model 10.
Some might say Secret Service watching a presidential speech.
Yeah, is it? Is
I
it?
thought so.
Okay,
I think so. Allegedly in a white Bronco. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I would assume that they hit like shy tax or something, but yeah. So okay, next one, pretty important one, duty pistol. So what do we mean by duty pistol? It's if you were a cop, essentially, what is the gun that you would want to be on your hip, so all the time. For more civilian purpose, you're talking nightstand gun, keeping your marksmanship with pistol, training at the range, this type of gun, that sort of thing. So what are we talking about? And I'll just be forward in saying it's a 15 round double stack 9mm. Some people like 45, 40 Smith has kind of fallen to the wayside. 357 SIG has kind of disappeared.
That's hilarious you mentioned that. I haven't even heard anyone mention that in literal years. That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
I mean, and when we were younger and we were talking about picking a caliber, I think 357 SIG was probably the best performing round, but it was just too weird. Bottleneck pistol cartridge, but you're talking like basically 357 performance in the footprint of a 9mm. So, but I think the reason why it's gone to the wayside is just because the science in ballistics has just completely made incredible advancements over the past maybe 5 or 10 years. So, I mean, and that being said, 9mm can basically do as modern ballistics do as much damage as 40 Smith & Wesson, 45, and you're going to get less snap, less recoil, and more rounds in the same size package. So, it doesn't. I get if some people like 45, it's fine. It doesn't personally make sense to me, and like I like 45. I like shooting 1911s. I like shooting your Chris. I like shooting your USP compact, which I know is your nightstand gun. Mm-hmm. They're great guns. I am about having, as always, about everything as flat shooting and as less recoil as humanly possible, which my choice is a CZ75, more specifically the SPO1 tactical model.
Yeah.
So, and I think you and I can agree, and we might be off the beaten path. Most people say, "Oh, get a Glock, get a Smith & Wesson M&P,
17.
Yeah, get a Glock 17." Even in the DASA, people are probably more likely to choose a SIG 226 or a Beretta, or now a 1911 or a 2011, where it's going to be a double stack. Which, I mean, I'm just not a fan of the idea of single action. I think for safety purposes, I want to be able to. I just don't like the idea of cocked and locked and a single action trigger. It works for some people. The trigger time that I have most of is on a CZ75 SPO1, where I draw it or I pull it up. I know I've got that first long trigger pull, and then as soon as I'm done engaging, I hit that beautiful decocker on the side of the pistol.
Yep.
But I would say DASA guns are kind of they're not popular. I think they do take a little bit more advanced trigger time to be able to, because you've got two different trigger pulls, and for the most part.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. So double action, single action, what we mean is that basically the gun has two different trigger pulls. The first one is a double action, second one's a single action. So with double action, what we mean by double is it does two jobs. Is it pulls the hammer back and then it releases the sear to let the hammer go forward. So you're doing two things by one long trigger pull. Once the gun cycles, the trigger will remain in what is single action, to where the hammer is already cocked back, and you don't need to, it's not a long trigger pull, it's a shorter trigger pull, and all it's doing is dropping the hammer the next time. So basically you're doing that until the magazine is empty. Whereas double action, where double action only, as they say, or DAO, is where you're pulling the trigger and it's always pulling the hammer back and releasing the sear so the hammer can go forward. Striker fired is basically doing, the way I explain it, it's kind of doing one and a half things. So, most striker fired guns are, the striker is already locked back about halfway, so the trigger pull is pushing it just a little bit and then dropping it.
And those are the Glocks. And the
those are, basically, if you're looking at any modern duty pistol or carry pistol, your Glock, your Smith & Wesson M&P, your Beretta Apex, your your Steyr M9,
Smith & Wesson Sigmas.
Yeah, your and those are all the carry guns. So your Sig P365, your another one, the 320. So that's basically the modern trend in pistols. Is we want to just, especially when you're training people like law enforcement or military, we just want one trigger pull, all the same. We can train everybody on it. It's consistent. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. But so, I mean, if you're on the newer side of shooting, then that's probably where you're going to go. It's going to be hard to go anywhere else. I mean, we're kind of old school guys in the sense that, like, we grew up, like, the guns that I wanted, like,
92 FS.
It was 92 FS. So, it's Bruce Willis in Die Hard. It's Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon. And even, like, even us growing up, there were still a lot of guys out there with, like, Smith & Wesson 59 or 69 series, to where they're DASA guns. It wasn't, I mean, like, I can remember as a little kid, like, looking at cops' holsters. Most of the time they had Beretta 92s. And that's what the military had. But there's obviously this modern trend. I don't think it's coming back. The only way it would come back is that if someone drops a DASA gun that is really special. I just don't think we're there. And
like you said, it's simplified training for them. So they're always looking for the fastest track. And it's like a Glock is just so much easier to train on.
Right. And a lot of the modern striker fired pistols, like Walther, the HK VP9. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're really modernizing these triggers to where they're pretty good. They're not grainy, mushroomy triggers like a Gen 3 Glock.
VP9 was Mac's favorite gun for a while, a long time. So
I
think,
yeah. At least my personal choice, if I'm getting a striker fire gun, I love the Steyr M9. It's
M9A1, yep.
Yeah, the M9A1. I think they have, like, the L9, which is, like, longer. They've got a C9, it's compact, that sort of thing. Obviously Steyr is a very quality manufacturer, but the grip angle, and it's got a very low bore axis. A little weird thing about them is that they do have what we call trapezoidal sights. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at the sight picture, it's more of like a triangle than a 3-dot or like a Glock U-shaped sight. But it really does kind of, when you pull it up, it really does grab your eyes towards the front sight post. So I think it's an interesting concept. Obviously, you want to, and sorry about the dog, just to cut in real fast. He, for whatever reason, hates Curtis. It doesn't make any sense. He's a loving, sweet dog, and Curtis is a loving, sweet man. And but he, for whatever reason, it really bothers me. One of my best friends, and my dog hates him. So But so if you hear him in the background, that's what's going on. He hears us talking out here. But then, yeah, I would say that. I know you're a huge HK guy. Maybe not huge HK guy.
I hate the USP, so it's like I hate half their guns. So
right,
I'm just kind of torn in between.
But I mean, they're your compact 45. It's a really slick gun.
It's a lot of gun in a small package, and it was used in Zero Dark 30, and it's threaded, and it has a decocker that we both love. Ambidextrous decocker, ambidextrous magazine release. The snap isn't that much. It has a magazine. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Plus, I modified it, and it's got a laser sight and all this other stuff on it. Too, so.
Yeah. So there's that. The next is the carry pistol. I think we've talked at length about that in the 1-gun collection and 3-gun collection. I personally carry a Sig 3 P365 XL. I got the XL because the barrel length goes in my pants, so it's not really a part of the concealment. I want a longer sight radius to be more accurate. So that's why I got it. At the time, it was also, I think, the only model that was drilled and tapped for red dot sight. So there's that. If I was to get a new summer carry, I'm looking at the Smith Bodyguard 2.0. You're talking about a really small, pocket-sized pistol that holds 10 rounds of 380 in flush fit, 12 in a extended mag. Other things that you might think of: Glock 43X, Springfield Hellcat. I think those are probably the big sellers these days. So there's that. And then, what's your current carry gun?
380Z.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Smith & Wesson EZ 380. Yeah, it's a little dated now, but it's great.
It's not all that different from the Bodyguard 2.0.
That's true. It is 2 more rounds. It's 2 more rounds.
Sure.
Yeah, but you've got a rail on it. You can put a light on it if you wanted. And was the gun made for old people? Was it made for smaller statured people, or women, or just people with less grip strength? Sure. But I've shot yours. It's a smooth shooting gun.
Shoots like a 22.
Yeah. So there's that. Can you pull your mic just a little bit closer? I know I keep bugging you about it. I'm sorry.
Hi. It's like I'm on NPR.
Yeah. Welcome back to the ASMR Gun Hour. Okay. So next category I have is 1911. Which you and we have to give credit where credit is due.
I own one. I'm not hating on it entirely.
Right, but let's just say this: you own a lot of guns, so
can neither confirm nor deny.
So if hypothetically, if someone's to own a lot of guns, the likelihood that one of them is going to be in 1911 is pretty high.
Very high.
So, we were talking about this earlier today. You can. I think 1911, you can spend anywhere from $300 to $10,000 seriously on one gun.
With collectors big, theoretically 30, 50,000 guns.
Right.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I was watching the 1911 Syndicate. Shout out to them. The one guy, I think it's called I can't remember the manufacturer, but it's like the Treasurer model. It's a single stack 1911, but and that's his main carry gun, and he said it's $6,000.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about Ed Brown or Cabot or Dan Wesson or Wilson Combat, I think entry level Wilson Combats are $1,200, $1,500.
Entry level, maybe those could.
Yeah, really entry level. I guess what used to be known as the best 1911, but I think it's been proven otherwise. Kimber, I think Kimber starts at $800. This isn't new, but Kimber, I think, wanted to basically self-categorize themselves as the best 1911 out there, and I've never known a person to just not say it's problematic unless I'm shooting Winchester white box.
And I have, we'll say, close relatives who are Kimber fanboys oiled their Kimber, put it in a safe, pulled it out 4 to 6 months later, had rust spots all over it, and then all of a sudden hated Kimber to death and never wanted anything to do with them again. Mm-hmm. That's anecdotal, sure, but that is something that I've experienced.
I think Kimber got its reputation maybe
they're pretty.
Yeah, like maybe early mid 90s where the 1911 was getting phased out by a lot of law enforcement, but it was still being utilized by special forces or special units within police, like the LA SWAT, or LA County SWAT. I think that's probably where Kimber kind of got its reputation, is that, we're the operators 1911. But I just think as time has gone on, that's just not all that accurate anymore.
Well, no, and maybe something else too, which could be a whole another series in and of itself. But I mean, the sexy sell of movies in and of themselves. I mean, wasn't the silver and gold ones, was it Face Off? Weren't those?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you'll have a certain number of people who will see that and go, okay, I want one. And they'll go buy one. Mm-hmm. So if they're a pretty 1911 like a Kimber, that could contribute to the sale.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at movies, I'm hard pressed to believe a detective or something, some guy who wears a plainclothes cop is going to carry a 1911, even in the mid 80s up until, but
be a revolver, more than probably.
Right, but what we see in the movies, you're talking. Bruce Willis had a 92 FS. Mm-hmm. Actually, fun fact, the 92 FS that was used in Die Hard is the exact same one that was used by Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon 1.
Yeah, and how much did that sell for, probably?
Right. So, I mean, whoever's got it, it's got literally the,
most valuable 92 FS on the planet, probably.
Right. I mean, that's got to be one of the coolest movie guns, maybe other than it's just the one gun.
Do you know if it was a gun or was it a prop gun?
It was a real gun.
Okay. That's even way more valuable.
Right. So there's that. So I would even put that. So if there's 20 Smith & Wesson Model 29 44 Magnums from Dirty Harry, mm-hmm. I would put the value of one 92 FS, or actually it's a 92F, but we're getting in the weeds here.
No one cares about that.
I would put the value of that one gun being John McClane's gun and Martin Riggs's gun over one of 30 Dirty Harry guns.
I mean, Dirty Harry at this point is a fairly antiquated expression.
Yeah.
You talk to any Gen Z, they're going to be like, what are you talking about?
But yeah, so jumping back to 1911 though, I mean, basically I feel like you got to have one if you're going to have you can't legitimately call yourself a gun collector if you don't have a 1911. But you can, but yeah, I mean, and I split time with my brother on the first 1911 I had, which is my grandfather's, which he carried on his hip in World War II. He was a artillery captain. And I don't think he saw much action because he was kind of coming in with the back and the big guns and the howitzers and stuff like that. But I mean,
who cares?
Yeah, I did some deep research on him one time, and I did find a field report that he was included on about how he was kind of going through this couple days after D-Day. Maybe it's like maybe 2 weeks after D-Day. They were going through this small French town and was already cleared out, and that sort of stuff. But it's cool to read that, and my grandfather was there, yep. And what was he there with? The gun that I have. So that's pretty sweet. So, you can have a historical piece like that, but I may not like 1911s all that much, or I think they might I think that they are obsolescent. It is a single action other than 1911s has fallen out of favor. There's some resurgence with 2011s, but for the most part, I just it's a great trigger pull, but it's basically unless I'm got it cocked and locked and I'm ready to shoot at whatever I'm shooting at, I don't really care for single action only. But there's that. But I mean, you can have it's still a formidable pistol. I mean, it is 7 or 8 rounds, 45. It's going to be reliable it really depends on what you get, but for the most part, even the cheaper stuff, you get a Rock Island auction for $300. I think for the most
used,
or even new. I mean, I think it's going to be mostly reliable. Obviously, we're talking about Kimbers where there's a problem. Say, stay away from them. But I recently purchased another 1911 because I was splitting time with my brother with my grandpa's, and I want to shoot it, but I don't want to shoot it. You know what I mean?
It's a museum piece.
Yeah, So it's a museum piece. It still works. We still can shoot it, but I just I would just rather rely my 1911 fun on something else. So I got a TSAS, one of the newer Night Stalker models. It's pretty sweet. I feel like I got a great deal on it. I've been reading a lot on the newer TSAS 1911s from coming in from Turkey. A lot of people are just saying they're overall quality pistols. And I mean, I've shot it a couple times. I don't feel there's anything wrong with it yet. I think the quality is certainly better than the Gersons that are coming through. I've kind of, from what I've read, the Gersons are fine, but the TSAS are kind of exceptional for the price. So I got a 1911. It's got a rail, ambi safety, magwell. It's optics ready, and it's got a threaded barrel. It was $429 on Palmetto State. After shipping and the FFL fee, it was $500 flat. I don't know how I can beat that. As long as it turns out to be a good shooter, I don't know how I can beat that. Obviously, you're going to get a better package if you're getting, a Dan Wesson or a Wilson Combat, Ed Brown, whatever. But I'm just, I don't, like I said, I don't have the money to spend $1,500 on a pistol. So there's that. What are your thoughts on 1911?
I'd say probably the same thing overall. I think they're great. It just depends. You need to give the credit where it's due. So if we warp back to 1914, as much as I'm obsessed with, as you know, all the old weird psycho German ones like the Luger and things like that, if you're going to war and you have your choice of your semi-auto, I mean, yeah, I'm picking the 1911. It's going to be all day long, obviously. So I'd pick that one. I kind of view it as, in terms of like carry, for instance, you were mentioning that. I look at it exactly the same way as I look at appendix carry, which is a lot of people do it. A lot of people like it. I don't want to do it. So it's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's that like personal, taste. I know people that appendix carry. I know people that wear cocked and locked. I just don't. If you train to, keep one nut in the tube, or you train for whatever you want, everyone has their own personal comfort level. That's just, that sear. I've watched people bump those and that hammer drops before, and you can call that a crappy whatever, and sure, fine, high five, but it's just a little too close to, some of those really target ones have 1.5, 2 pound triggers, something like that on the trigger. And that's just, it's a little light for me to want to have anything to do with carrying. So great, cool. A lot of race guns, for instance, are 1911, a lot of target guns. But and again, I may or may not own one and, enjoy shooting it, but it's a collection gun to me personally.
Right. I mean, if someone was breaking into my house and that's what I had,
you're not going to be
fine.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm not like,
Out of all of them,
I'm going to war, or I'm going out on, I'm not saying that I am, or if I'm a cop, that sort of thing, I'm not going out. And so, I mean, I was thinking about this while you're talking about cocked and locked. So, and I don't remember the Jeff Cooper conditions. I think condition 0 is like no mag, like no mag, none in the tube. I think condition 1 is like magazine in, whatever. I don't remember that. But what I do know is that the 1911, when it was first put into service, obviously sorry, my neighbor's here kind of ruining my train of thought. Obviously the idea on handguns back then were you only shoot them one-handed, that sort of thing. But I don't think until Jeff Cooper started coming around that the 1911, when it's in military service, that's in a holster with no round in the chamber and the hammer down. Mm-hmm. So you pull it out of the holster and you rack it back and you're good to go. So I think I'm kind of calling out some 1911 people here, but it's kind of a farce to say that the idea for the 1911 was from the start was to have it carried cocked and locked. I think modern safeties on 1911s, they're a lot better than the old ones, but in terms of the tactile, the tactileness of it, that's not a good word. I don't know. They're usually pretty positive safety. I think that's the best way of saying it, where they really stick in place. But I don't know. I have a brand new 1911 with like the extended ambi safety, and I mean, dude, I'm touching it like when I'm just holding the gun, I'm touching it all the time. So I'm like, I'll manipulate this thing when I want to, and maybe when I don't want to. So,
and you and me, I have very strong feelings about carrying, cocked and locked and everything else. But it's because I've seen a lot of very compelling data on what are the conditions in which ADs, accidental discharges, or accidental discharges occur, and it's very, very, very high frequency. It was cocked and locked, and someone grabbed it to pull it out of their pants or their holster. That's like an exceedingly high. That's why I don't, wouldn't recommend personally appendix carry for the exact same reason.
I'm too fat. If you got a big belly hanging out over your belt, you're not going to be able to appendix carry. Sorry, guys. So I don't even have to worry about that. So next one up, again, sorry about Otis there. You guys do share a middle initial though. It's J.
Hooray.
Wheel gun. So revolver. So basically, again, there's a ton of revolvers out there, and this can overlap some of the other stuff. What's your purpose?
What's my purpose of revolver?
I mean, it just kind of what's anybody's purpose. There's a couple things I can think of. So like I've had mine, and I'll get into this with the next category, but like I got a 357 to go camping with. Mm-hmm. And like basically if, I probably shouldn't be saying this because I am a lawyer. I'm a Summit County prosecutor. However, dude, if there's a bear around, I don't really care what the laws are. I'm going to shoot it.
They're going to murder you and your friends.
Yeah. Like if I wake up at my campsite and there's a black bear sniffing around, I mean, like, dude, maybe I should figure out what the laws are, but like, I would be really hard pressed to not just be like, I got to shoot this thing.
We're not giving legal advice right now.
We are not giving legal advice. Whatever, you follow the law. You don't do as I say, not as I do.
Not giving legal advice.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I would do in that, but like, I'm more worried about like, yeah, it's going to hurt me, but like, what about the couple kids, couple campsites down, that sort of thing. So, that's what freaks me out. But, I feel like, if there's a bear in Northeast Ohio, which, I mean, they're here. I think they're more prevalent now than they have been in past years, but, that sort of thing. But so I just got a 4-inch 357. I think that's probably the most
versatile.
Yeah, maybe more. Yeah, or ubiquitous revolver, and it's basically it shoots 357. That's hot. If you want to take it to the range, you can shoot 38s in practice, and those are going to be not as hot, not as recoil, cheaper. But I mean, if you're going into the woods where there's bigger animals like Alaska or something, where you've got a 44 or 500 or anywhere in between, like 454 Casull, that sort of thing. I mean, I've shot one of those. I've shot your 500 one time. That was enough. And then I shot somebody's it was like a Ruger Super Alaskan in like 454 Casull, and it was a snub nose. And I was like, I'm good. I don't need to do that again.
A snub nose 44 mag is going to suck.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I've seen a lot of like the gun tubers all have like shot that like 8-shot Smith & Wesson Scantium framed. And it's like in 44 Magnum, and they're like, it's sweet, but it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's like air weight, super strong, but it's air weight, and they're like, okay, yeah, this would hurt something, but I enjoyed that 0%
right.
Thing.
And I always feel like you got to know, you figure out what's overkill for what you're trying to use something for, and don't do that. So like if you need a gun for basic self-defense in a metropolitan area like Akron, Ohio, you don't need a 44 Magnum. You don't really need a 10 millimeter, and we'll get into that with the next category. But, I've got a 4-inch 357. Do I need anything more than that? I mean, sure, there's really cool stuff out there. I mean, like I don't have a lot of them. I don't really, I think it's having only six shots in the reloading. I don't think for tactical purposes it's any good. So that's probably the reason why I don't get into revolvers too much. I think that they're beautiful, like a Smith & Wesson, Model 27, like a Trooper model, or, Colt Pythons. Those are absolutely beautiful guns. And there's there's an elegance to them, but they're just not, if I had more money, I'd probably get into revolvers more, because I've got everything that I think is more important from a tactical standpoint. And then I can kind of bleed into that, that category of like, I'm just having more fun. So I'm going to have certain revolvers, that sort of thing, but I just don't have the money to do it. So in that regard, I've got the one to kind of check the box of the collection, and maybe I'll revisit it later, but I've thought a lot about getting a 22 revolver, like an 8-shot, because they just seem fun. You know what I mean?
Cattlemen or whatever they're called.
Or like just like those Smiths where it's kind of like a 6-inch barrel on it. That seems like it's a lot of fun. So, yeah, give me your take on wheel gun.
I'm gonna upset a lot of people. So my take is they are archery to firearms. They are fun. They're elegant. They were the originators. They were the OG. They have unimaginable history, and every single one of them has a better counterpart in technology and functionality and effectiveness. That's all. By the way, I am an archer, as you know. I do shoot bow and arrows. I have lots of them, and I love it. It's super fun. Just like a revolver. However, does that do a good of job as hitting a target as something else that I can have? No, and nowhere close. But that's fine. Revolvers are super awesome. I have a personal preference also for, I think the rhinos are super, super cool. There's also a, which I've had before, which you've shot, I think, right?
Yeah, I have shot your rhino.
I
did not care for it. I think
you did not.
No, the trigger,
was, I think,
it's
longer
not,
than you
it's
liked.
not a
It was-
hammer. It's a cocking lever.
Yeah.
I just didn't care for it.
Didn't care for it. But there was, there's things like that. There's my dream revolver, which is a Matiba auto revolver, which I believe is also an underbarrel one. I think it's like $7,000 or $8,000, of course. But beautiful, beautiful gun. But is that, you were mentioning like for bear or whatever else, you may or may not own also a 10 mil semi-auto. Is that 357 going to do anything that 10 mil is not going to do? Probably with easier use. The other thing too is like, it's just not the same. If you give that to someone at the range, is it just like the auto? No, it's not. If it's 357 or God forbid, 454 Casull or 500, you better not have those fingers near that gas cap, because they're going to, I think it was Such or
It was Hickok.
it was a Hickok, and like put like a hot dog or something and rip the thing in half. Like it's going to do damage if you have that nearby, because it's just not the same thing that people think it is. Oh, can I hold the same weight? No, you can't. You have to have a different grip.
Right.
Are a lot of those really, bloody damn snappy? You want to talk about that 500 Magnum? I have watched people shoot that and then throw it on the ground and say, I'm never touching that thing ever again, because this is not a real thing. This is stupid.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the bow and arrow to me. I love it. It's very fun. Is it anything that I personally think should be in anyone's self-defense or tactical or hunt? Hunting, if you want to, fun. With archery, I can do that too, but that's my take.
Yeah. There are those people that like go hunting with a big bore revolver.
Sure.
And they got a scope on it and stuff. Sure, that's fine.
Or archery.
Yeah.
All the time. It's exactly.
But I think you said it perfectly. Basically, there's a better counterpart out there, and it's a semi-auto. In getting it, and we're going to get in 10 mils next. But the fact of the matter is that, there's, and I have a 10 mil that's a double stack CZ75 clone for the purpose of I can get more round. It's got more rounds initially, and I can reload it much faster than a 357 wheel gun.
And triggers better, and you won't have any issues with the air gap and blah 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 blah.
Right. That too. Another point going back. Every time I go to the range and I am taking a newer shooter or someone, they've shot semi-autos or they've, that sort of thing, I warn the piss out of them about getting their hand near, because the modern semi-auto grip is getting that left hand up in, what do they call it, the gas pedal now. A lot of modern handguns have this feature, it's like a literal shelf.
Yep.
And basically that's the type of grip now that is being utilized for semi-autos. And if you did the same exact thing on a revolver, you would be losing fingers. So I'm always always making sure that people understand that when we go shooting. Another thing is, and I think this might be the worst gun advice anybody can ever give, is that's when an older person or someone who doesn't have the hand strength to rack a slide on a semi-auto, they go to the gun store and the guy behind the counter sells them a revolver.
Yep.
So this is older folks. This is smaller statured women. No offense, but it is what it is. Plus, you've got some most guys. You go to the gun store like, hey, little lady, this is what you can do. They try to sell them a Ladysmith or something. Yeah. The thing about that is that one, proper training in something like a Smith & Wesson EZ, where it's built to be rack. It's much easier to rack. It's got the bigger ears on the back of the slide to grab. The spring isn't as strong, that sort of thing. Also, simple thing to combat that, and no one ever thinks of it, is if you've got two hands holding onto the pistol, you don't have to just use one to pull the slide back. Push forward and pull back at the same time, and then that takes, you're using both of your hands instead of just one. It does make it a lot easier to do. But in addition to that, most of these revolvers, they're all going to be double action. And when you're shooting it in a stressful thing, it's got a long trigger pull. So the gun itself under stress is going to sway based on, a novice shooter just spraying and praying. So you're going to have less rounds. It's going to be less accurate, and you're going to put yourself in more danger. So I'd say that. The only argument I've ever heard that's better for a revolver than a semi-auto is that if someone is literally pressed up against you, you can take a semi-auto out of battery, whereas a revolver you can't. So like if the slide is pressed up against someone's chest, it can push the slide out of battery.
You can still block the hammer then.
Yeah, but also, or you grab the revolver and you just grab it by the cylinder and it's not going to rotate. So I mean, and these are really dumb hypotheticals that people spend too much time on. So if someone's on top of you, you should have a knife. That's pretty much it.
Or don't get in that situation.
Don't get in that situation in the first place. Okay, next category, we're moving along. The additional bear gun, or I'd say 10 millimeter. So, or just I would say outdoorsy gun, depending on what you're doing. So, if you, like I said, I've got a 10 millimeter, holds 14 rounds in the magazine. And plus I can obviously just, drop the mag, throw another one in. So, I mean, obviously if you're spending time outdoors and you think that there's bear, or this category could go towards, you're out in the desert and you got a revolver with a snake shot in it, that sort of thing. Something, a gun that's going to help you. It's going to be a defensive weapon against certain predators. If you want to have a long gun, if you want to have a 12 gauge with slugs in it, fine. If you want to have a Marlin with 45-70 in it, fine. But for the most part, if it's just something you want it to be small, compact, that sort of thing. I got the 10 millimeter because I got to a point where I was taking a 357 for bear, and then I had another pistol for people.
Yeah.
So,
oh boy.
Right. So I've got like a 9mm, my CZ, so I'm like, at that point, I'm like, I'll just get the 10 mil, and I've got the capacity for both potential problems. So there's that. I was going to say, like I said, I have a EAA CZ75 clone. I like it a lot. The Smith & Wesson M&P 10 millimeter, I think gets a lot of cred. The Glock 10 millimeter, whatever. I wouldn't get it, but that's just me. The 1911s and 10 millimeter are good sellers. I think if I'm out in the woods, and like I said, I want the gun to be in a condition which if it's a single action 1911, I want the gun to be in a condition that I'm comfortable with. So, but I feel like if I'm out in the woods and it's in a bag or in somewhere where I know it is, I can pull it out and rack the slide. And I'm ready to point and shoot. Whereas I'm not going to have it cocked and locked in the woods. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Other 10 mils. I'm not a SIG 220 person. Neither are you. We've tried to like SIG back in our day. The feds were still carrying that sort of thing. It's just,
I did 229 TAC Ops. It's not a cheap gun.
No, I had a SIG Pro 2022, which was the polymer frame. It's just, it's a bulky slide, and there's a lot of weight moving around on the top of the gun, and the muzzle flip on it is, even for 9mm, is just too much.
Bore axis is high.
Yeah, bore axis is really high. Plus, the triggers are, I think, they're not good for a DASA gun.
I think they should be way better.
They should be way better. The reset's garbage. But even saying that, like I've seen a couple beautiful SIG 220s and 10 millimeter. It's gonna be a pricey gun, but But if I didn't have a CZ75 clone, I'd probably be looking at a 1911, just because it's cooler than a striker fired Smith & Wesson M&P. So there's that. Next one, I can't say much to this. I've just got the category on the list: skeet gun, or bird gun. So like if and bird gun's the next one on the list. And starting with the last category, these are what I would call the additional categories, where I don't think that they're absolutely necessary to have a complete collection, but
These are niche, yeah.
these are niche, but they're niche enough. So skeet gun, I don't know, an over-under Beretta, an over-under Benelli. Yeah, those are like, the Italian shotguns. Those are going to be the sought-after models. But if you're a basic skeet gun guy, which I'm not, it's probably going to be the same thing as a bird gun. It's going to be some sort of pump action with a big ass barrel.
26, 28 inch something.
Yeah. And then like some of those, if you've ever seen, like if you go to a gun show and they've got these barrels that are like 40 inches long, and it's on on a bolt action Mossberg shotgun.
Yeah.
Those are a thing. I think Mossberg they might still make a bolt action shotgun. I don't know, but I just
nowadays it'd be so stupid.
Yeah. They're just funny to look at. So I don't know too much, but
I have a wild card that I would use if I wanted to. If you want,
yeah, go for it.
Is the computer working?
Yeah.
Look up the Chiappa Triple Crown.
Okay.
You want to impress your friends?
Threat.
You want to impress your friends at the skeet shoot. You bring a Chiappa Triple Crown, and they're going to be like, "What the hell is that thing?" Also, it's freaking awesome. Because
I see Triple Crown and Triple Threat. Maybe the Triple Crown's got to be the.
Let's look up Triple Crown.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. So, like you said, there's a lot of over-unders. A lot of very pretty with all the engraving, and the scroll work all over the side of the metal. Yes, you are.
Here we go.
Yeah, baby.
So that's pretty.
Hold on.
Pretty nice.
So not the cheapest
MSRP
in the world. However,
$2,200.
How many other firearms, including shotguns, do you know with 3 barrels?
Mm-hmm. Do you even call this? Yeah, it's not an over/under. It's a
It's a over/under.
Mm-hmm.
Or over/under.
Let's see how they describe it. Maybe they don't. 3 rounds, 28-inch barrel, break open action. So, shout out to Ian McCollum over at Forgotten Weapons. I can't remember if he did it on Forgotten Weapons or he did it with Carl on In Range, but he took one of these to a 2-gun or shotgun match or whatever, dressed up as Jesus, and then that's where he gets the name Shotgun Jesus.
Jeez.
So,
did it work well? Chiappa is a quality company. I don't know about this one, but Chiappa makes good stuff.
Yeah, I've never, and like they do make some copies of things. Mm-hmm. I think they make like M1 carbines and 9mm.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so they make a wide range of firearms, including like the Rhino and this kind of off the beaten path. Here, let's see. Why is this? I need to get out of old man gear. Bear with me, folks. I am learning how to use a Mac. Handguns, Rhino, 1911, M922. Okay. Rifles, lever actions, combined semi-auto. So yeah, I don't know. M4. I don't know what the RAK is, but here we go. These always seem interesting. Here, like a super tactical M1 in 9mm.
Fake suppressor.
With a fake suppressor on it. Sure. Why not?
Looks cool.
Yeah. There's a very rich person with this somewhere.
Very.
So yeah. So yeah, I mean something like that, the triple threat or the triple crown. The triple threat is a short barrel, not SBS. It's a shorter barrel that's supposed to be for personal defense, more so of a coach gun. With that, I would say,
there we go.
Yeah, we are not gonna follow the recommendations of one Joe Biden.
Shoot in the air.
And have a double barrel shotgun for personal defense in the first place, and then shoot both rounds in the air before you've tried to hit anybody. Because what goes up must come down, and
I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure that's illegal to shoot randomly in a direction where there's civilians.
I would call that reckless discharge of a gun.
Yeah.
So yeah, or even here. We were talking about the Mossberg Maverick 88 right here.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can go to the webpage. So this is obviously like the shorter defensive model. What other options are there? But I mean, you can get this gun in a much longer barrel version, and you can take that and learn how to, do skeet shooting for that. Also Mossberg Maverick, as we were talking about, it's got a 3-inch chamber. So, yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to see if there's. Here we go. This mouse sucks too. So, it's security model flat. Here you got the security and field combo if you're trying to be budget friendly. So we take it home, switch the barrel out when you go skeet shooting, put in that, or if you're shooting foul, there you go. So and that's, we'll jump into the next category, which is bird gun. I don't do bird hunting, but I'm just guessing essentially not. I mean, I've got some idea that a bird gun is basically going to be similar to a skeet gun. Maybe you want more shots. You want a pump action to maybe take down more birds. But I know
You mean semi-auto?
or semi-auto. Yeah, potentially. I know, and that's another thing. I'm so not into semi-auto shotguns that I'm like, it didn't even cross my mind to have one. But yeah, I mean, semi-auto shotguns, I know, obviously, Beretta, Benelli, all that stuff, they're going to have those out there. So there's that.
A5 is the classic, like we talked about.
Yeah, the Browning A5, or I think it's like the Remington 1100. I can't remember.
That sounds about right, but yeah, we're not crazy like me and Grandpa going duck hunting. I mean, a lot of people do that, but
yeah.
Which is good. So yeah, 26 or 28 inch barrel. I think the gist of it for me personally would be 26 or 28 inch barrel. Get the choke that, go to a gun shop and have them recommend the choke based off the distance and whatever you're shooting at. And then get 3-inch or 3.5 inch Magnum loads. And then that's just it. Pump action or semi-auto should be fine based off of how you trained and what you're looking to do. And yeah, pheasant, goose, whatever you're going for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Because I need to know more about chokes. I don't really know that much about it. I know
I hate them. That's why I have a smoothbore. But yeah,
yeah.
You can tailor them to whatever kind of distance you're shooting at.
Okay. The next category up is deer gun, and I'll say you have more knowledge about this than me, and we can separate however you want to do it. But if you want to talk separately about a deer gun or an Ohio deer gun.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good segue. So you want me to go now?
Yeah, go ahead and explain.
So deer gun versus Ohio deer gun. So the biggest thing to take 10 steps back would be to understand that every single state, you need to know your individual laws.
And I'm listening. I'm refreshing our beers.
You're good. Oh, perfect. So the individual states are going to have individual laws depending on where you live. They have decided to ban certain things via all their individual state laws. If it's a straight wall cartridge like in Ohio, that's the only thing that's allowed. If it tapers at all, so if the bullet casing as you're looking at it, if it gets smaller towards the projectile in any fashion, the brass portion of it, that is, and again, this isn't legal advice, this is just my understanding for educational purposes, that is illegal in Ohio. So you're kind of limited to what you're actually able to use. So West Virginia, for instance, Joe and I have shot 30-30. That's what I would kind of consider personally 30-30 or 30-6, depending on where you're at. A very, very traditional. Thank you, sir. Deer cartridge 30-6 is going to do more than you'll ever need it to for a deer, but 30-30 for a lever action gun. A Marlin 30-30, for instance, is a very, very, very classic deer gun that's going to do everything you want it to. Very accurate, very lightweight. Recoil's not bad at all. West Virginia, I think, Virginia, a couple other states, all the ones out west are probably going to be very more liberal with whatever you're able to use. Ohio is very differently where we live. It's straight wall cartridge only, like I mentioned. So you're really left with 3 major players. It's not to say that there aren't other cartridges that you can use. There's probably, I think, 20 on that list or somewhere around there. But really, typically what you're referring to are 3 major players. That is 350 Legend, 4570 Government, and 450 Bushmaster. You definitely can shoot other cartridges, to my knowledge, but those are basically what people are referring to. 4570 Government is basically either going to be a bolt gun or it's going to be a lever action, because I believe that one is rimmed, as far as I can recall.
It is rimmed.
And it will, I promise you, do everything you need to. That cartridge is not going to be the limiting reagent in your experiment. You are really going to want to practice with it. If you're a good shot with it, it is not going to be the cause of a lack of efficacy at deer hunting. 350 Legend is, from my understanding, this would be your cartridge, a very flat, a lighter, a less recoil, very accurate, but still pretty powerful. I think at 100 yards, it's 357-ish or so.
Really? I thought it was more along the lines of like the old Remington Model 8, 35 Winchester.
Maybe. I suppose.
I mean, it's a 35 caliber, but yeah. But
I'm not really familiar with that cartridge, so I don't really know the power at that range. But 450 Bushmaster, from my understanding, is basically, I think it's a little bit lighter of a bullet. I think it's going a little bit hotter. So you're going to have a little bit better accuracy. Again, 4570 is what's like a 200-year-old cartridge or something like that. It's a very old rimmed cartridge from, I believe, the late Wild West.
I think the Trapdoor Springfield was
originally designed for that.
It was 4570, but it was black powder. But here, yeah.
But yeah, we can look that up. But typically now, if you're looking at a modern cartridge, straight wall, rimless, that's going to be semi-auto, you're looking at 350 Legend, and which I don't think is rimmed, but I have never shot that or anything, so I'm not going to immediately claim knowledge on that. But 450 Bushmaster, for instance, if you want to get a bolt action with that, it's going to be really pretty cheap. It's going to be really pretty accurate. It's going to be very, very, very powerful.
Yeah. Developed for U.S. Army Springfield, and Springfield model 1873.
Yeah, so it is the rim there. You can see. 450 Bushmaster, 350 Legend. Savage is very, very good at their Axis line, for instance, that we've seen makes very affordable, like brand new. I think those things are like $250. The downside is they're very light, and the recoil could be pretty nasty on something like a 30-6. But yeah, pretty easy to get into for any of those cartridges if they're anywhere within that normal range of the vital area when you're deer hunting is going to do massive, massive damage, especially 4570 or 450 Bushmaster. I believe any straight wall cartridge above a certain caliber is legal. Again, that's just off the top of my head, but I thought 45 ACP is even legal if it's powerful enough or whatever. But yeah, those are basically your three major winners. You're at 350, you're at 450 Bushmaster, or you're at 4570. All of those are going to be great. 350 will be probably the most accurate. 450 behind that. 4570 will be way powerful, but also a little bit heavier, more like the 8mm version.
Okay. It's kind of silly how the Ohio, it's, because isn't Ohio, I believe or the statute defines that you can only use pistol cartridges, but a pistol cartridge is defined as being a straight wall cartridge.
Yeah, it's straight wall. I don't know if they say straight wall or pistol, but I know 450 Bushmaster, 4570, and 350 are legal. I believe, not legal advice, are legal in Ohio.
Right, and that's the lawyer who likes guns. Maybe I should know this, but I've never been hunting. I would like to go. I've just never gotten around to doing it. My understanding is the law defines a pistol cartridge as one that is straight walled. So a bottleneck cartridge is not a pistol cartridge.
It's a rifle.
Yeah. But either way, so I mean, and it's just kind of funny in that it's technically a pistol caliber, but 4570 might be in certain loadings might be overkill or inhumane.
A 4570 and a deer. We'll just say I have personally seen one that was shot with a 4570, and I have also personally seen someone with a very large hand put their very large fist through the exit wound, and it was not hard at all. It was this big.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at what point do you? I mean, you're hunting deer. You're not hunting deer for fun. You're hunting deer for food.
If I hunt deer, I would hunt for food. I want the meat.
Right.
I don't care about horns. I'm the weirdo. I don't care about horns. I don't care about the trophy deer. I don't want the big buck. I want the yummy tasty deer if I would go deer hunting.
Right. That being said, I mean, at what point are you talking about like you're losing out on meat?
Well, luckily,
maybe it's not that bad.
The primo meat is not going to be on the chest near that cavity.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, is it going to do an excessive amount of damage? Yes, although I'm going to also be the weirdo and say I would way more, being a fan of hunting, I would way more lean on the side of make sure that thing drops and make sure in case you have a flinch or a fly lands on your nose or a dog barks in the distance and distracts you and you get a little off shot, the last thing any humane person wants is that thing limping away and dying a slow, painful death in the woods. So I would personally just recommend, from my perspective, you get the legal tank shell and whatever, firearm you have, and you put that thing down immediately so it has no suffering, and then you go harvest that and have food for your family.
Okay, perfect. All laws aside, what deer cartridge would you want to hunt with?
I would want to hunt with 450 Bushmaster. I would never, ever, 350 is probably more accurate, but I think what you and I would probably share the same ethos in the hunting, in what that we're not in Montana. We're not looking at another mountain range, where it's all the way across that whole valley and we're like, oh, that's a big distance. That's not the topography that would be around here. So personally, I would never even, and I'm a fair shot, over 100 yards. I'm just, I'll wait, I'll wait. And 450 and 100 yards is going to do a hell of a lot of damage. 350 will be perfectly accurate. Will it get the job done? Yeah, I bet it will. But that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I personally want to make sure that thing goes night-night. There's no pain, no suffering, or whatever. I know that I'm going to go get it. I know that I'm not going to lose it in the woods because it's getting dark and I lose the trail. I want nothing to do with any of that portion. I want to put it down immediately.
Okay. I mean, that's a very fair point. Kind of persuaded me on just make sure you have enough. Because, yeah. But, I mean, I don't think I've probably heard some FUDs in a gun show saying that they hunt deer with a 357 or a 44 or even a 30 carbine.
I'd feel very strongly arguing against that, but
yeah.
a 30 carbine, yeah.
Right. But okay. Next one, next here I have is what I'm calling CNR, or
Okay.
and this is basically, if the CNR, I mean by Curio and Relic. It's not being a full-blown FFL, but it's basically you are allowed to, you have a license to collect, basically collect certain historical firearms. There's a list out there, and basically these types of firearms, you can, if you have the license, you can order them, and you need to go through a whole federal background process. So, like, you know, we're not talking about some of the misinformation that's been put on to where I can just have a gun shipped to my house over the internet. That's not true. But
Dealers can.
Dealers can, but they're dealers. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of a middle ground to where the weapons that are eligible for the Curio and Relic license are not going to be ones that are offered for sale. And you can't, as being a Curio and Relic license holder, you're not a dealer. Mm. This license is only for the purpose of furthering your own collection. And you've had one in the past.
It's not for making a profit at all. Mm-hmm. If that's what you're looking to do not get a CNR.
Right. Because, I mean, you've got the federal government looking up your hoo-ha.
Sure.
You know,
you gotta
before
be squeaky clean.
Yeah. And you got to have all that ready to go. But the guns that are on the list can be fun to shoot. Could they be serviceable in defensive situations? Sure. But for the most part, it's for what I would call either obsolete or obsolescent weapons, to where if you're trying to defend yourself, or you're trying to if you're trying to organize a militia or something,
oh boy,
there's better options. I'm just kidding. I'm not going there. But I mean, like, so, you know, when we were younger, you know, the whole prepper zombie apocalypse sort of
very common topic
was a very common topic. I think the gun companies really ran away with it in terms of marketing. And they made a ton of money in terms of weird guns coming in like with a lime green trim, or lime green this, or lime green that.
Remember Zombie Max?
Yeah. You know, Hornady Zombie Max, which was basically the same. It was the VMAX, just the tip instead of being red was green.
Yeah.
I think I had a box of Zombie Max 9mm just because it was fun. But you know, there were people out there who were trying to make the argument that, like, I've got 12 guys with a crate of Mosins can be a formidable opponent. And that's just,
I love Mosins, but
that's just not true. Mosin, what we're talking about is a Mosin Gant. The initial model was 1891. Most of the stuff that you're going to get out there now, and it itself had dried up, is the 9130, which is what I was saying earlier. You could go to a gun show when I was 18 years old and get one of these for $45 a piece. Now they're $500-$600, depending on certain features or certain, you know, well, hex receiver's going to be what, $6?
Well, I saw a PU today. Mm-hmm. I believe at we'll call him Dave. You and I both know who we're talking about. It was $1,500. So,
yeah.
But again, that's the Vasily Zaitsev, you know, firearm. But yeah, a Tula hex, you know, clean out of Cosmo, but, you know, pristine chrome line bore, 6.7, you know, something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's just, we've had them, we've shot them. I had a PU. The scope was a repro. It just wasn't. They're not all that accurate. They're really not. I mean, we tried really hard.
It's not a Savage 10 and 300 Win Mag, okay?
Right.
It's just not that.
And
they're cool.
You know, yeah, they're cool because it's, you know, the Russian bolt action that was in service from 1891 to 1944 or 1945. You know,
whatever it was.
Well, really 47, because even the SKS was adopted for a really short period of time as the main gun, and then the AK came along literally right after. So, So yeah, I mean, like so you're talking about basically military surplus weapons from other international militaries, and they're fine. They're serviceable. They're fun to shoot, but they're really, if you're in a jam, this isn't the gun that you're reaching for. But there's some cool stuff. Like I know my CZ82 is technically a carrier and relic, and I carried that thing for like 5 years. And it was a great it was a great carry pistol. Other than the fact that I didn't have a decocker on it, so I wasn't a huge fan of the method in which I had to put that thing back in double action.
It's the one thing Makarov I think has above that.
Right. But I mean, there's Mosins, there's SKSs. Is SKS carrier and relic or no?
The CZ82s and the SKSs and even the AKs, I'm not super familiar with. Anything basically before 1960, I think, is fairly comfortably within that.
Okay.
Like anything bolt action of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
I would believe SKSs, but don't quote me on that because I think they made those like kind of later also. Like Norinco probably was pumping those out till who knows when, making the fake copies and stuff.
Yeah, and like a lot of the Eastern Bloc pistols.
Yeah.
CZ50, CZ52.
CZ52. The M70. This is
Zastavas, the Tokarevs, all of that stuff. Makarovs, the Polish P64.
Radom. Yeah, the Polish Radoms.
The Hungarian PA63, which is basically a PP clone in 9 Mac.
The Polish guns and the Tokarev, which are supposed to be like the most unergonomic and uncomfortable firearms to shoot on planet Earth.
Yeah. So there's that. That's kind of but that's a unique thing. Next one I have up is the pistol caliber carbine, which I think is growing in popularity. So, and I said that back when we were talking about the 3-gun. If you're just going to have 3 guns, a lot of people are thinking about a pistol caliber carbine instead of a rifle. So, I mean, there's a ton of options out there right now. There's a lot of older stuff out there that a lot of people don't think of, like a Ruger Camp 9,
which go for crazy money.
Or is it a Marlin?
It's a Marlin. I think Ruger bought Marlin. Mark? But yeah, originally it was Marlin.
It was originally Marlin, and they took Smith mags. But basically, the current thing we had up earlier on the screen was
Ruger PCC.
Yeah. But I mean, Smith & Wesson, I think, is the PCC. A lot of people, the Kel-Tec, Sub 2000. But you can have some fun with this in terms of the Chris Vector. It'll be a copy over here, but in the MP5 copy. I mean, you can, as long as if it's over 16 inches, you can have a regular stock on it. If it's a pistol, you can have a stabilizing brace on it. If you want to SBR it, obviously you can put a regular stock on what would be a pistol, and make it a short barrel rifle.
Although I would interject that there's some interesting talks going around about maybe that not being the case in the next couple of years in terms of the NFA and all that stuff. So
yeah,
just a super side note.
I mean, and we're in a young stage of a big change, and I think whether you like it or not, the amount of administrative interpretation of certain. I mean, I'll basically say is that this administration is not going to have the administrative law, the alphabet agencies basically creating new law by interpreting old law. They're going to wait for statutes to be drawn up.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
All right. But yeah, so I mean, pistol caliber carbines, talking 9mm, 45, maybe even some in 10. I think
tons of 10.
Yeah, I think High Point makes a 10mm carbine. that sort of thing. But I mean, and if you like a high point, I mean, like, I know that high point gets shit on a lot, but for what it is,
cheap.
They're cheap, and I haven't heard any problems with the carbines.
The carbines, I will admit, as much as I have a bias, I haven't really heard a lot of. Well, to be honest, I also don't know too many people that have them, but I haven't heard that they're disasters like the pistols. So,
well, I mean, I'll say this: I haven't heard anything bad about the pistols per se. I just the quality control now is much better than what it used to be.
It is, and I'm not saying that they don't function all that well. I'm saying I have felt more ergonomic to my hand tennis shoes than I have the high point pistol. Is all I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Next one. I mean, this is kind of.
Well, do you want to go over your favorite PCC?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the MP5. Okay. I mean, there's some.
You just mentioned some, but
I mean, there's some really cool stuff out there, like the CZ Scorpion, Chris Vector.
SIG has theirs.
Yeah, the SIG MPX,
whatever that model is.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, SIG. SIG discontinued the one with the longer barrel. I don't understand that. They went from.
I heard that one of them had some blah 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 issues. So your mileage may vary, but that's just what I heard from people. But
I mean, I get like the SIG Rattler where it's like really small. The thing is though is that I just it doesn't make sense to me to. And I get like people want like a PDW to where it's like you can fold in the brace on it. I can put it on my hip, kind of almost like a newer CZ Scorpion type thing where it's like I said, a PDW where you can carry it very much, it's not bothering you to carry it on your person. And that's maybe not your primary job is to carry a gun, or you're more of a covert security force. I mean, like, I know that's why like the FN P90 was developed for like to be armor piercing, for like level 3 body armor, and also to be very small.
And also zero recoil because the thing's so tiny.
Yeah. Because it shoots basically 22 Magnum.
Basically. Really fast 22 Magnum.
Yeah. But I mean, my personal favorite is it's going to be the MP5. Just going back, I know it's outdated, and I know that I spent time today kind of shitting on AKs in the sense that their ergonomics and their ability to be set up for modern technology is slight. MP5 has the same exact problem, if not worse. Because I'll be honest, I have an MP5 and I'm working through the setup. I'm like I said, I don't have much money. I have money to buy an MP5. I just don't have money to put shit on it.
Don't do the math.
Yeah. But getting an optic on it, I'm going to put a light on it. I'm not going to spend like $600 on having the old school grip light
where it's
integrated in the grip. Those things are like $600. Yeah. I'm just not going to do that. But putting a modern forend on it, going to have a light on it. I'm going to put a low profile red dot on it, but like the gun was set up to be run with iron sights. Mm-hmm. And there's modern. And, like the B&T, I can't afford that, which is, I think, what the U.S. military has actually just contracted out maybe a year or two ago.
Really?
So, yeah, their PDW is a B&T, Strybog, all that stuff. Like, I get it. Or, like, the SIG stuff, the SIG Rattler, the MPX, the CZ Scorpion.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is that a lot of them are. I was pretty dead set on Scorpion until I realized it was a blowback. It's a blowback.
It is.
I kept reading and seeing videos and stuff on YouTube, and basically people are like, the CZ Scorpion has the same recoil impulse as an AR-15 because it's blowback, and I'm like, at that rate, what am I doing here? So, and obviously the MP5 is tried and true delayed roller blowback. So,
okay.
All right. next one. Yeah, and I don't know. Some people are into these, some people aren't. Mouse gun. And what I mean by that is like a baby Browning.
Oh.
I've got a Beretta Bobcat, which is a little 2022 tip-up barrel. This is... I took it to the range once with my buddy Anth, and Anth called it the hooker gun. It's very much what it is. It's
not a bad name for it.
It's a tiny gun that can be located in a discrete place.
Brazier, obviously.
Yeah. Or I think in Goodfellas, Karen, played by, she was also in The Sopranos. They're like raiding their house, and she like cuts all the cocaine and puts it in the toilet and stuff.
Oh, jeez.
And she throws like a tiny gun like in her panties, and I was like, yeah, that's probably got to be uncomfortable. Lorraine Bracco, the fantastic Lorraine Bracco, also Dr. Jennifer Melfi on The Sopranos. But yeah, they're like coming through the house, and yeah, she throws in her panties. I'm like, eh. Anywho, like some people like having a collection of these. I've got a small gun. I just got it because it's 22, but like, I don't know. Some people like having baby Brownings or little 32s. I kind of have an interest in, like early turn of the century small pistols. Obviously I've got a Savage 1907. We're going to talk about that in a second, but like I have a hankering to get a Ruby, which is the French pistol of World War One. I don't know why. I just don't. I don't. 32 is now not necessarily a good caliber. It used to be back in the day, but it was not a good caliber. But it's not a good caliber.
It's like 25 ACP.
Right. I'll jump to that. I have seen a bunch of ballistic tests where it's basically at the end of the day, it's like you're better off having a 22 like mini mag or 22 Velociter
or Stinger or something
over a 25 ACP.
Easily, yeah, from what I've seen.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're into that, like baby Brownings or I don't think the modern guns kind of like, I wouldn't consider a Ruger LCP a mouse gun, just because I think it was more designed for like really pocket carry,
like a Bodyguard 1.0.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
But I think it get up to kind of the C Camp, like a C Camp 32. I would consider that a mouse gun. So yeah, kind of a unique little niche area. And then jumping to the historical piece, just something that you like that's old.
Speaking my language.
Yeah, and like just something that kind of is either weird or quirky or whatever. So I've got a Savage 1907. It's chambered in 32. It was manufactured in 1910. So it is 115 years old. Still holding up. I shoot it every now and again. Pretty rarely. It's not exactly a safe queen. I actually have 2 magazines for it, which is unheard of. Yeah. But one will hold the entire 10 rounds. The other one holds about like 6. But it was the first technically double stack magazine. So it's a stack and a half, but it's 32 ACP. It holds 10 rounds, which was unheard of at the time. Oh, yeah. It has a rotating barrel, which is kind of like the Beretta PX4 Storm or the Remington, the OG Model 51, where it's got a rotating barrel, but it spins in the opposite direction of the bullet spin.
To increase twist?
I think to increase twist. And the design of it is just, it's so cool with the, with kind of the Art Deco styling. Here, I'll bring this up. So this, and this one looks pretty much exactly like mine. But the magazine release is here on the front, and you hit it with your pinky. It's kind of weird. Obviously, the barrel is actually sleeved by the entire slide, which is unique. The serrations on the slide, they're really stout, but they're just like spaced out and pretty deep. Obviously, the knurling on the safety there. It's not a hammer fired gun. It's technically a striker fired gun, and this is the cocking lever. It's not a hammer. But overall, and just kind of the Art Deco design of it, obviously the bluing on this one is pretty good. Mine's still in pretty great shape. It's just a really unique gun. Actually bought it off of a guy who was one of my grandmother's students at Firestone High School. My grandmother used to teach a typing class. And then when I gave my ID to verify I have a license, he was like, "Oh, is your grandma, Beatrice Latch?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, he asked me how she was doing. I was like, "Well, she died about 10, 15 years ago, but he had her in class, so it's kind of an interesting little story. But it shoots great. It's just a unique little. It's kind of like a vest pocket size, so it's about the same size as like a Colt 1903 or a Remington Model 51, but that's kind of mine. I could think of maybe something else that I may want that I like in the future, maybe like a Remington Model 51. That'd be cool. Also, another one that I'm really interested in is the Sauer 38H, which was one of the like German interwar pistols. Here, I'll look it up. Also chambered in 32.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, and the cool thing about this one is
like a PPK precursor.
Well, it was about the same time as the PPK.
Was it?
Yeah, but the cool thing about this, if I can get a picture. Show it the other way. Here we go. Okay, so it's hammer fired, but it's an internal hammer. However, this is a decocking lever and slide release. However, the decocker will drop it down in a single action or drop it back up into double action.
It can go the other way, too.
It can go the other way, too.
That's very rare.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of another pistol that has done it since. Oh, with the one of the HK. Not the P7, maybe the P9.
The one that looks like this? The silver one?
It doesn't look like that, but let me see here.
The P39 or whatever I'm thinking
of. Not 09. Yeah, P9 or the P9S. So yeah. Mm. So this is pretty much a more modern version of the gun. Oh, here, got it up with one of your favorites. Let's get this up.
Best gun ever.
Yeah. It is hipster worthy. So this would be kind of a historical gun now. I think it's still got some modern factors, but it is a delayed roller blowback gun, but it also has, if I can find a darn picture of it here, it also has the same feature. And then it's hammer fired, but it's got an internal hammer, but it's got this lever that's the mag release, and then also
that's where Sig got it from.
The
lever that slides down like that. That's exactly what Sigs do.
Yeah, except with the Sig, it just drops. It just decocks. It doesn't go back and forth between double action and single action. So I think that's little guns like that where it's got a unique feature on it. I think that's interests me. But I know, and we said we're talking your stuff, so go.
I'll go short. Walther P5 is my absolute favorite in terms of mechanic of arms, even though for some reason that gun shoots
Here it is.
a full foot low at 10 feet, not 10 yards, at 10 feet. It's shooting insane, so I can't really explain that. However, they are amazing. The mechanic of arms is just it's one of the best I've ever felt. But that one's great. The other ones I would just say are, I'd go even older. So basically, I'm a very simple 10-year-old boy. Anything that was in The Rocketeer or Indiana Jones, I love to death. So C96 broom handle. You know, I know you're not in love with it like I am, but you still have an affection for it.
It almost killed me one time. That's why I'm.
Yeah, well, it ripped my whole thumbnail off. You remember? You were there for
I
that.
do remember that.
As it shot into my face. So yeah, there's a certain risk to. I mean, they're 120 years old. Some of these things. So the broom handle, the C96 broom handle, the Luger P08, also awesome. The grip angle was the OG. I mean, that's the grip angle that basically everyone adopted 100 years later with, Target pistols and Glocks and, Target 22s, etc. Those are all great. But yeah, the broom handle, awesome with its self-contained stock in the actual carry case that you can attach to the back handle. The Lugers did that also. Things like that. And then obviously Walter P5, I think are just absolutely great.
Okay. Yeah. P5. It was a James Bond gun, I think, for one, which was maybe one or two.
Her Majesty's Secret Service.
No, a little bit
That was
older.
like 1111. It was before Sean Connery.
No, the P5. No, it was during Roger Moore. So I know for a fact.
Sean Connery was before Roger Moore.
Right. So the P5 pistol, it's up on the screen right now. I think it was one of the pistols that was chosen after the Germany terrorism that happened at I can't remember, it was the Olympics or something.
Oh, the Munich.
Yes.
Munich.
Yeah. So the counterterrorism or whatever police, basically they did trials for a couple of pistols, and oddly enough, they didn't choose one. It was German. Yeah, it was German police. Sorry guys. Yeah, it was German police trials, and instead of choosing one gun, they basically said all of these are sufficient or good enough. And
we'll do contracts for all of them.
And we'll do contracts for all of them.
Wow.
One of them, and they all are so. One of them was the Walther P5, which is there. The next one was the Sig Sauer P6, which is basically a single stack 226.
Okay.
And then the next one was the HK P7.
Oh.
And so basically, they said all of these are perfectly good. You choose which one you want. I think the P6 was far and away used most because it was cheapest. It was basically German police. You can choose from these three pistols. I think the M5 was chosen the least, or the P5 was chosen the least because of its cost. Obviously, the HKP7 was expensive, but also the features on it were kind of obviously unique. So yeah.
Well, I think the squeeze
cocker.
Squeeze cocker
You can say that on the show.
I think the squeeze cocker actually is documented as like saving lives, as in like hijackers or robbers. They grabbed one and couldn't figure out how to use it, and they were actually apprehended because they weren't actually trained on the. I keep saying mechanic of arms. What's the manual of arms?
Manual of arms. Yeah. But all of them are 8-round single stack. Apparently, there was a ton of studies that basically the most amount of rounds that are used during most like close firefights are 8 rounds. So that's why they 8 rounds is fine. So, but oddly enough, yeah, the left hand extraction. But we don't know why that's on there, but yeah, okay. And then lastly, I have what I would call the personal provenance gun. This is Grandpa's gun, and we don't know what it could be. It could be absolutely anything. Somebody was showing me their Grandpa's Colt Woodsman the other day, and it was so cool. Obviously, having my Grandpa's 1911 and then also a P38 that he brought home, it's something that's tied to history, but it's tied to your own personal history, like who you are and where you came from and that sort of thing. So, that could be anything. And, you're never going to sell it. You might stop shooting it. It's just, something about it comes from a person that you care about, or a time that you weren't, like I never knew my grandfather. He died when my dad was 10 years old. So having that is like tied to a person that I should admire immensely, and I do, but only secondhand. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. Just gonna say, if you liked this, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Maybe we can get, I think this is very macro.
Sure.
But we can definitely get more detailed about little things, or like have little stories that go into, like about the P5. We can go into a little bit more. But overall, I think this was a great start to the beginning of the channel. Glad we could finally do this. And if you have any questions and please comment. We'll try to get back to you. And if you know me personally, feel free to reach out, and I can absolutely answer some questions for you. I always like, I like doing that for people. I don't want them to, people are always interested about maybe getting into firearms and they're not exactly sure, and they're not exactly sure who to talk to. It's a judgment-free zone, that sort of thing. So, all right. Thanks all. Take care.